Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now my whole team fucking here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now my whole started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now my whole team fucking here. I done kept it real from the jump. I done kept it real from the jump. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now my whole team fucking here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now my whole team fucking here. Started from the bottom, now we. I done kept it real from the. I done kept it real from the jump. Living at my mama's house, we'd argue every month, nigga. I done kept it real from the jump. Living at my mama's house, we'd argue every month, nigga. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now my whole team fucking here. I done kept it real from the jump. I done kept it real. I done kept it real from the jump.
Yeah. This is for all you non-philosophizing black sheep, unwelcome, pushed to the side motherfuckers like me.
Fuck what they say. Tang gang, Atheist Your Way. Yeah. Fuck what they say. Tang gang, Atheist Your Way. Let's get down to business. These bitches got glitches. And you thought you'd dismiss us? Nah. Now I'm laughing in stitches. See, the problem be, it'll be a tragic travesty to come after me. So just know this is how we get down. Respect that shit like a pronoun, bitch. Yeah. Fuck what they say. Tang gang, Atheist Your Way. Yeah. And fuck what they say. Tang gang, Atheist Your Way. Yeah. Fuck what they say. Tang gang, Atheist Your Way. Yeah. Fuck what they say. Tang gang, Atheist Your Way.
That was on purpose. What up, everybody? Your boy name's Oz. Welcome to the OZone. And surely this will be an open room, and anybody can jump in. But when a theist jumps in, they have priority, and I want to hear about good evidence. I just want to hear about good evidence. I want good evidence. I want good evidence. So for the record, good evidence is not the kham. I need good evidence, I need reliable evidence. But before we do that, let's jump through the announcements. Just for uno momento, and I'll put the link up for those that would like to join. But we do have this motherfucker coming back, the relaunch of the Tang Colin Show. Tang you rang, and that is not ever to be mistaken with this little thing that Bree created. Oh fuck, where'd it go? There it is. It's not a rang the Tang gang. It's not that. It is Tang you rang. And on this Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time will be the first edition of Can You Dig It, Sucker? But the sucker part's just what I had in there. With your host, Pat Lowinger, and Dr. Yeshua Bowen. You don't want to miss that. That one's for all the people way smarter than me. And then this Sunday we have a 2-piece and a biscuit at about 11 a.m. Eastern time. I'll be hanging out with Jared again from HFA Humanist Fellowship Assembly. He and those that are cool, comfortable from the local group here in Fort Wayne to talk and chat about local efforts and their stories and why the local group means something to them. We're going to get into that. And then later that night at 10 p.m. Eastern time, guess who's back? Back again. Jimmy's back. Tell your friends. And Jimmy and I are going to talk about some of the recent local interactions that we've had with Christians, Christian preachers, street pastors, and all that. And obviously comedy will be involved because that's Jimmy and I both appreciate stand-up comedy and all that. So we'll have those shenanigans for that shindig faux show. And then on my birthday is on the 18th, my birthday is on the 19th. I know that. But on the 18th, we're going to have a special edition of whiskey, scotch, and cigars. And I guess we're doing this thing for my birthday stream, and Jena's heading that up. And we're going to party. We're just going to fucking party is really what we're going to do. So mark your calendar. Sunday, September the 18th. It's going down. And then I mentioned it, but now I'm making it official, and I'm working on getting Spotify and SoundCloud and iTunes and all that shit set up for it. But and don't mind this artwork because Jena's going to make this look way better. But just so I can start to launch it and talk about it. October 30th. That's Devil's Night. I'm dropping a 13-track album. That's all I'll say about that. That's all I'm going to say about that. But what's up, everybody? The chat. Let's put the little linky link. Why am I echoing? Oh, that's why. Let me switch over. Let me switch over to the TANG channel so I can actually pin it. Of course, we gotta wait for the ads. Thank you, YouTube. Appreciate you. Thank you. All right, now it's pinned. Pinned to the Tizop. So like I said, whoever wants to join can join. But I want to talk to and with theists. What are good reasons? What are good reasons? What's good evidence for a God, or why should I believe in a God? Yeah. Hey, Ron, can you tell I finally got a little sleep? Can you tell? All of a sudden, I'm energized. Whoosh. Whoosh. But the link is posted there. I do have a little video to go through and talk about. It's SE related. Why we see if any theists want to join. So we'll keep it calm and cool and cordial until we find out if anyone wants to join. But until then, you know how we do. Blame it on the what? Blame it on the loose. Catch feeling loose. Blame it on the loose. Catch feeling loose. Blame it on This today is number 1, 2. This is number 3. Oh, I did not know that. Aunt Jur will be on Neil the 604 Atheist Show on the 29th. So put that shit in your calendar as well. I was not aware, but now I've become aware. Put that shit in your fucking calendar too. And there's that host we were just talking about a second ago. There's that guy. There's that guy. Yeah, I'll play this little video, and we'll see if any theists want to join it. I mean, anybody can join at any point if they want to. But like I said, if a theist joins, they do have priority, and obviously in this room, I want to hear good evidence. There's good reason for a God, or why I should believe in a God.
And he brought a member of his ministry to meet with me. So just as I was walking back to my car, he rushed up to me and said, "Hey, I want to talk with you. I got my friend here that wants to talk with you." And I think this is the guy here sitting down. How's it going? Are you Austin's friend? Hey, can I record and live stream? Are you okay? I'm Anthony.
Will.
Hey, very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, absolutely.
Is he going to be joining us, or?
No, he has to be at some other deal, but
Oh, okay.
he couldn't make it. But he was telling me about what you're doing, and I was really interested, really intrigued.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I can kind of give you a nutshell what I do.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess he's explained it, but
A little bit, yeah, but I'd like to hear from you first.
absolutely. I have conversations with people, usually right here in the square.
Yeah.
And I just start up just short little chats, like 5-10 minutes, to see what they believe and why.
Yeah.
And usually it's about God.
Sure.
But I'll talk to anyone about anything, and it could be about. Sometimes I talk to an atheist who thinks they have a soul, or they believe in karma, or there's a guy that believes Vishnu is the one true God.
Sure.
So I just have these short talks.
Yeah.
And we just, by me just asking questions, kind of uncover the real reasons why they hold the belief, why they think it's true.
Okay.
And then we test the reliability of those reasons.
Sure.
And it's fun.
Yeah.
Like I enjoy it. I would do this probably 5 hours a day for the rest of my life if I could.
Sure.
But I don't usually have
5 hours.
the energy to do that or the time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is you're part of his ministry?
No, not necessarily, but we're closely related as far
Okay.
as that goes. Yeah.
Are you part of Navigators?
I'm not. Well, I do stuff with him. I'm not a part of it. I'm not. I'm not like a navigator.
Okay. Are you more his friend than a colleague? Or
Yeah, we're definitely friends. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely friends. But we do stuff. We partner. I would say more of a partner.
yeah.
If that makes sense. I'm the college director at a church.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I've been to a couple different universities here in town, but this one just happens to be a little closer to my house, and it's more convenient to come here.
Sure.
But like I said, I just have those talks, and it's fantastic. And I've given Austin the YouTube channel.
Yeah. I took a picture of it just moments ago.
Okay, cool. So you can check it out. You kind of get a sense of what it's all about.
Yeah.
Who thinks they have the truth
Sure.
realizes that maybe they don't. And I think even that activity is beneficial.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you ask me questions, right?
Do you want me to interview you?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Please.
Uno momento, por favor. That's all I have to say to that.
Cuckoo, cuckoo. Liar, liar, pants on fire.
There you have it.
I don't know if I mentioned it, but it should be obvious. I'm recording
Yeah.
in my stream.
Oh my, yeah.
So I take it you're a Christian.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Why? What's the main reason?
Why am I a
Why do you
Christian?
think it's true?
I think it's true because of the person of Jesus Christ.
Okay.
What he did, what he said, and how he did it.
Why do you think there was even a person named Jesus?
Because of the historical relevance of his name now, and the effects and the way it's affected history.
Okay.
Not only, and not even aside from the fact of the historical accounts.
Okay.
Aside from the Bible, the historical accounts outside of the Bible.
Okay. If you were to learn that what you point to as historical accounts of Jesus really had no basis, no founding,
Sure.
and I'm not saying that that's the case.
It's not. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but if it was, would you
Sure.
still believe in the God?
But I still believe in a God.
Yeah.
Here's why.
Would it lower your confidence if you found out that everything was really just kind of made up?
You'd have to do a lot to prove that it was made up. There's a lot of criteria that has to happen for something in society that's made up. You know, And so you look at what happens around. You look at all the events that happen outside and inside of the stories and outside of the stories, and how they add up and relate to each other.
Okay. Sure. It would be difficult to possibly.
It'd be difficult to disprove the personhood of Jesus Christ. It'd be very difficult.
Okay.
It'd be very.
But there do seem to be some scholars that are investigating it.
Some,
that,
sure.
Yeah.
There's some that really earnestly want that to be true. There's people that desperately want that to be true.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it's just not the case. The majority of scholars look at the person of Jesus Christ and acknowledge that he was a real person.
Yeah.
So whether or not you
What-
like what he said,
That's true. Why do you think all the supernatural stuff that is attributed to this guy named Jesus? Why do you think it's true?
why do I think that's true? Just because of
People don't usually raise from the dead.
Sure, not usually. Yeah, absolutely. So if I look at what happened, right? So I look at him as a real person and what he says, and I see all the add-ons of the accounts, and I see what happens after his death, and so resurrection. I would say it's real. I see the lives of the disciples, and I see the difference between Christianity and all the other ones is the lives is who started, right? So you get the source, it's Jesus, and the source is Muhammad, right? So you got two very different starting points. One's more of a general, one's more of a hippie, and so it's really fascinating to see the different starting points.
Did you say Muhammad?
Muhammad, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Muhammad, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Okay, that's interesting.
It is, yeah. We'll just, I'm not talking about that or whatever, but just it's worth noting that the different starting points and how Christianity developed and all the other religions developed. I think they're radically different. You see the oppression of Christianity for the first 200 to 500 years that it exists, then it finally becomes a piece of the government.
Oh, are you saying that because so many people react and
people don't die for lies? I don't think.
Well, lots of people do.
I disagree.
You think the 9/11 people didn't die for a lie?
Well, they didn't know they were lying. They didn't know why.
Right.
They didn't know they were lying. Right?
Right.
So I think people die for things they believe, but I don't think people truly. So one of the biggest arguments against the resurrection story is that the people that hid his body. But if I knew that if I knew I could get out of something, and I knew that I did the hiding, and I knew I did the resurrection story, and I covered it up. One, they hear they're either delusional, they saw something, or they covered it up, and that way they die for a lie. I just don't think that happened.
I guess more importantly, Will, I'm a little perplexed why you would believe all these stories, even though other people have been influenced by them.
Sure.
Why do you believe it all? It seems quite incredible, isn't it?
It's not as incredible once you see that the historical relevance of Jesus Christ. But what
do you mean by that? Like the impact
that he's had, the odds of him not being a real person far outweigh the odds of him not being a real person.
What's the difference between the impact the idea of Jesus can have on a culture and the impact that a real savior that is the Son of God could have on a culture? How would it be different?
How would it be different?
Yeah, let's say that.
I think if it was just an ideal, it would be very easy to wash away, and it would be trumped.
Really?
But I think if this idea that there was, so if you look at, so I used to be an atheist too. I used to not believe in God.
Okay.
And so I started out with, what if there is a God, and what does that look like? Because I don't believe in God. Why should I? And the reason one of the main reasons I came to faith, just in general, that there has to be something, is because I couldn't stomach the idea of subjective morality.
Okay.
I couldn't handle that.
Yeah, and we can maybe get into that later.
Sure. Sure.
But what I guess I'm interested in is, let's look at Muhammad, for example, because you mentioned it.
Sure, yeah.
If Muhammad was really an idea and not a person that was the prophet of Allah,
sure.
If that was really an idea and not a person, how can you be so certain? What can you point to say that's obviously an idea? That really wasn't a person.
I think you look at the surrounding, you look at what's going on around it. You look at all the people that also talk about the person of Jesus. And so now you go, okay, so this guy was real. Whether or not you like it or not, he was a real person.
Well, sure. Well, you can assert that.
Well, I think it's easy to assert. I think the way history is developed.
It's extremely easy.
How can you say? Can you know King Tut is just an idea or a person? Do you know?
Listen, I don't want to debate with you.
Right, sure.
But if you can just let me finish this point.
Sorry, my bad. My apologies.
If Muhammad was not the prophet of Allah and was just an idea,
I don't really care whether you believe in Allah, Muhammad, Jesus, or Yahweh. The link's to the top. If there's any theist listening, like, by all means, please join the stream. I'd rather have a conversation than just listen to a video. As much as I love listening to Anthony Magnabosco do this shit, I could do this shit all day, all night. I'd prefer right now to have a conversation. So if you're here, you're a theist and you want to have a respectful conversation about what are good reasons to believe in a God. Is there a good, reliable reason or evidence in which we should believe in this God? The link is pinned to the top of the side chat. So you're more than welcome to join. I'd much rather have a conversation than just play a video.
Yeah. How could you explain that to somebody that really believes that it's true?
I believe the person of Muhammad was real.
Okay.
But I believe, based off the way in which he received the word from God, does not match up with other, what I would say, credible, right? So when I say credible, I would say the sources we have for the Bible are much different than the sources we have and have been less touched, if that makes any sense, than the sources of the Quran, right? So we see these accounts of who wrote the Quran versus who wrote the Bible. We see the comparison of. So I think the biggest deal is not that if it's an idea or not, is if we like the idea. So I think these ideas are
exactly. So here's my point.
So now we have to compare ideas.
Do you like the idea that Jesus was a man and is the Son of God? Do you like?
And for the record, I just spent the last several minutes going through our banned list on YouTube and on StreamYard, and there are several that will forever remain blocked or banned, and two or three, now that I'm thinking about it, I can't remember the other one was, but Darth Dawkins, or Ding Dong, as we're now calling him, Ding Dong, Isaiah Perez, and I don't remember who the third was now, but those are the only three that I will not lift a ban on. The other ones I lifted. If you want to come on and have a respectful conversation, I lifted the ban. Now you can re-earn your ban if you want to be an asshole, but I'm in a different place now, and I can definitely handle these conversations. And at this point, I'm only an asshole if you earn it. If you earn it, I will be an asshole.
Amen.
Hey, amen. You tell him. Amen.
Blame it on the loose. Blame it on the loose. Got you feeling loose. Blame it on the loose. Got you feeling loose. Blame it on the
this idea that he was a man and not the idea that he was an idea, a concept.
I definitely, I wouldn't believe it if I just thought he was an idea. I just thought, so right, I mean.
I think I would probably agree. Like, I probably wouldn't agree that Jesus was the Son of God if I thought it was just an idea.
Sure, right.
But if I really thought he was a man, I'd probably really believe it.
Yeah.
But here's my question, bro.
Sure. I'm listening.
How do you know the difference between Jesus as an idea and Jesus as a man?
Because of what he said. So I know.
Because of what is written in a book?
More than one book, more than one account, more than one historical account.
Okay.
Plenty, right? So there's plenty of historical accounts.
There is?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're talking about extra biblical?
I'm talking about extra biblical.
Okay.
Absolutely.
But hold on. If
Sir.
every instance that you would say that's extra biblical,
Sure.
there's all these, I don't know, I'm sorry, I don't know if we're talking about 10 or 20 or 100. If there's all these extra biblical
Sure.
accounts of Jesus, if every extra biblical account of Jesus that you think right now exists
Right.
could be shown to you that they're not what you think that they are,
Sure.
that there's no extra biblical accounts,
Right.
would you still hold the belief in the God,
In the God,
your God?
in my God.
Mhm.
I think yes. And here's why. One, could you do that? I understand. I feel like you think you can do that. Correct? Is this correct?
I think it's possible,
It's possible.
but it's not really relevant
I
whether
don't-
I can do it or not.
Sure. Well, it is right. So I think if you could do that, that would be a huge block for me. Right.
Okay.
That would be a huge
Okay.
block out of the.
Just
That would be.
before you finish your point, if I could just
Sure.
say, I assume how sure are you that the God exists? Your God,
Very,
Jesus.
very sure.
100%?
I would say 99.
99. That's
Yeah.
an honest answer.
Yeah.
So you're 99% confident that God exists and there's no doubt.
Yeah. 99%. Yeah.
What
98, 99.
What would happen on that scale if I was extremely motivated and I pulled all this information together to show you, and I'm not going to do this,
Sure.
but to show you that all the instances
I would
of
encourage you to, but
okay, all the instances of extra biblical accounts of Jesus could be explained that they really weren't talking about him or they were forgeries or something.
Sure.
Right? How would you move on the 99? Would you stay firm or would you slide?
I think it'd be silly to just move, to just slide.
Really?
I think just as a thinker and as like a soon to be scholar, I think to immediately jump just at the first sign.
Okay.
The first sign, because there's so much more that goes in my faith.
Let me finish this hypothetical.
Sure.
I was able to provide you with enough information to show that Jesus was not there were no extra biblical historical references to
Right.
Jesus
Yeah.
to your satisfaction.
Okay. That's a good way to put that.
Because I think that's wise to say,
Yeah.
you know what? I'm just not going to take the first dude that tells me that this is, not
Yeah,
true.
Sure.
I think that's smart. But if it could be explained to your satisfaction that, you know what, we really will just have the writings of the Bible that talk about Jesus to your satisfaction, where would that?
So if just
how would
the
that
Bible-
influence your position?
Well, the Bible's pretty credible as well. So if it was just the Bible we had to go off of, I would still believe. But
How confident would you be?
in the Bible,
No. How confident would you be in the accuracy of the existence of this God being true? You said you're 99% sure the God exists.
sure.
If we had concrete evidence to your satisfaction
Sure.
that there were no extra biblical references to Jesus, where would you move? Where would you adjust? Where would you right
So
size?
I still have the Bible, correct? There's that.
Yes.
If we still have the Bible, I'd say probably 97.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because of
So you dropped just a little bit.
just a little bit.
So the extra biblical accounts, while they are somewhat influential, they're not that huge for you.
They're big. They're big. They're very big. So I guess when I say 97, that's an average. Some days I wake up, struggling with, coming from an atheist background,
Yeah.
like not growing up like that, but growing up or living my own irreligious kind of life for a little bit. I definitely would say that it would be something. Sometimes I wake up at an 80. Sometimes I wake up and I go, God, I really don't know if I can leave today. I wake up the next day and I get something happens and I read and then something just hits me. My heart feels lifted and
Well, my heart didn't feel lifted. I just went to Your Way or Yahweh Tested by Fire. And it was about like like there's no links to like a Twitter or a Facebook. Does anybody have Your Way or Yahweh Tested by Fire, like an email address or something? I will single-handedly invite him on right now. Right now. I just don't have any way of. I don't know how to get a hold of the motherfucker. He's kind of like the God he serves. It's impossible to get a hold of him.
I go, okay, that's why.
Can we talk about that?
Sure.
That lifting that you talked about?
I'll talk about it.
You dropped down to an 80, but what snaps you back up to a 95, 97, 98, 99?
Alex, can I say it in a story? Can I?
Sure. Can you kind of keep it real brief?
Yes, I can. So
but still convey the point because I want to understand.
Subjective morality is one of the biggest things that keeps me in check with the fact that I don't believe in subjective morality is why I believe that there is a God, because I can't stomach the fact that that it's just okay if someone decides that this is okay, like X say hurting children. Someone has decided that this is beneficial for their culture, religion, whatever. That somewhere along history they've decided this is okay to hurt children. For X number of reasons.
So because the idea of subjective morality is unpleasant to you,
it's one of the big ones.
You'd rather not believe it.
It's not that it's just unpleasant.
Is that what you're saying?
I think it's downright. I think it's logically. I can't. Not logic. I can't imagine a reality where that is okay. I can't. It's inconceivable. It's inconceivable because it's this idea that innocence, that evil is okay. In fact, if there is no God, evil doesn't exist. It's just whatever. Correct?
Some people don't agree with that. I really dislike the word evil.
Sure.
Because it contains a lot of religious baggage.
Okay, yeah.
I like to talk about harm.
Great. Harm.
Beneficial things and harmful things.
Right. So beneficial things and harmful things. So I can't stomach the things. I can't stomach. It's not that I just can't stomach. I can't fathom that harmful things are just kind of, well, okay, that happens. And that's okay to some people, and some people think that's okay. And I'm not sure if I'm ready. I'm never going to be okay with that. There's these stories, on stories of this evil I'm sorry that you say, I know you don't like the word evil, but the word that I'm using evil to describe is just downright destitute, just totally desolate lifestyle. Totally detached from sensitivity, totally detached from the self, like totally detached from anything but pleasing the self. Okay. Self-indulgence, total self-indulgence.
Can we just take a step back from morality and talk about truths?
Truths, yeah, sure.
If something is true or not true, does it really matter if we're disturbed by the idea of it or the belief around it?
So truth. So the question.
So for example, like,
give me the question.
I'll just use a real basic example.
Yeah, sure.
Like, I would love to think that I have $1 million in the bank,
sure,
but I don't. That hard fact, that truth that I don't have $1 million is disturbing to me because I'd really love to have it.
Sure.
But I'm not going to just believe that I have that money in there,
right? Because
it'll give me a good feeling. I'd rather know something,
right?
Even though it will be disappointing to learn it, I'd rather know it. I want to believe true things. So I guess if we can maybe piggyback off the morality thing.
Okay.
How much of this belief that you hold, Will, is based on you wanting it to be real and you actually knowing that it's real?
Okay. So knowing is a hard word, I think, because it's pretty subjective, right? So that's the idea of knowing something.
Okay. I agree. Knowing would be 100% and you're not. You're 99. Sure, yeah. So you want to go with belief?
Yeah, so the reason I believe it's real is because of all the accumulated events in my life and the logic paired with that and the history paired with that. So there's a couple blocks in which my faith resides.
your faith resides? How are you using the word faith?
Faith as in hope, being certain in what I can't see, but what I do know. Being hope in these things that are unseen, I feel like are knowable. They're not right here. It's not right here. I can't show you a math problem.
All right. So I want to ask everybody, like, share this on your social medias and your discords, because I just think it's either ironic or hilarious that no theist, like I'm not a philosopher. I'm not the smartest guy on the block. And nobody wants to talk about good reasons, good evidence to believe in a God. Please share this. Please share this. Like, so far, we're just winning the conversation, and I'm not even having to have a conversation. You know what I mean?
Okay. Show that God's real, and you know that, right? So it's,
how often, how big of a part is faith in this belief for you?
it's pretty big. It's pretty big.
Back to the scale of 99%.
Sure.
If you couldn't use faith and hope that it was true, where would you adjust on the confidence of your belief in that scale?
If I could not use faith, if I could not use hope, I mean, these are cornerstones of what I do, of who I am, my faith. I have faith. My salvation and what I believe in is all through faith. So if there is no, so maybe repeat.
Can I reword?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
This might be even be a better rewording of it.
Sure.
If through the process of us conversing, just like Austin and I conversed, if through the process of conversing, you were to discover that faith as a process for coming to know that something's true, coming to believe that something's true.
Sure.
If you were to discover that faith or hoping that your belief is true is not reliable.
Is lack of faith reliable?
I guess it all depends on your definition, and we can get into that.
Sure.
But before we address that, I'd really like to understand that if we spent however much time, whatever, and at the end of the talk or talks, you said, you know, faith really isn't reliable. That cornerstone of my foundation of my belief, this faith, this hope that I use to be sure, nearly sure that this belief is true. If you found that method of faith was unreliable, where would you be on the confidence of your belief on that scale?
I think this is really interesting language being used, method of faith. I suppose faith is not simply it's not a solution for my prayer. It's not I don't go, here is faith and here is my result.
Well, faith is hope, is it not?
Faith is hope in the things I cannot see. So it's
I already know where he's going with this, but I'll say real quick, because this is fair, but I'm only playing this to fill time, because I'm hoping theist. Well, anybody can join. Like I said, anybody can join, but once a theist joins, they have priority. I think many theists view street epistemology the same way they view critical race theory, which is crazy to me, but something spooky they don't understand, so it's bad, and they stay away from it. No matter what belief you deeply hold on to, no matter what you think is true, if you think it's true, if you think you hold truth, you have truth, it doesn't fear investigation, no matter what format that investigation looks like, feels like, or what have you. But I saw Bree just joined in. So Bree, I have to point this out because you missed it earlier. So we are reintroducing the Tang call-in show. Tang, you rang, and I always have to also include Orang the Tang gang that you created. So thank you for that, because they are they're simultaneous at this point. So thank you, and you're welcome, and thank you. That is a beautiful partnership. The two of those things. And anyone can join. But Theist, please, I just want to talk about good evidence. What do you find? I'm not talking about convincing me. I want to know what you find as good evidence, reliable evidence. You don't have to convince me. I'm not asking you to convince me.
Seeing, it's not seeing, and it's living in that.
Faith is seeing.
So it's both. So it's faith is hope in the things I cannot see. Right. So that means I can see some. I'm seeing. I know something. I have this awareness and knowledge of something. And so but I also am unseeing. So there's things I can't physically grasp, but I know that is there. I have emotions. I have feelings. And I don't believe they're just chemical reactions, right? I don't believe that's solely. I don't believe I'm a product of I don't think I'm controlled solely by chemical reactions, right? So I believe faith is more than just it's not just a math problem which I crunch numbers into in order to solve. I don't think it's a process. I think it's okay. But does that make sense?
Kind of. But you said it was the cornerstone, so I'm trying to get an understanding. Like, if you didn't have faith as a method for coming to
if I didn't have faith, I would not believe in God. Because faith is that. Faith is believing. Faith is why I believe. Faith, the act of faith, doing faith, living faithfully, is a part of who I am.
Right.
Because I have faith, because I am living in faith, I'm now living this life based on this faith. It's
gotcha.
It's more, it's complex. It's a little dirty. Yeah. It's tense. It's not easy. And it's not black and white.
If you didn't have faith, you wouldn't believe in the God.
I think without...
Is that a fair statement?
Yes, I think that is a fair statement. But without God, there wouldn't be any faith. So I think that I wouldn't have faith if there wasn't a God.
God gives you the faith that you need to conclude that he exists.
I think yes. I think at a certain level. Yeah.
Yeah.
At a certain level.
When you use faith and you hope for something that you can't see to be true, do you always get it?
Do I always get it? Do I always get this faith?
When you use faith, do you always achieve what you're using faith for?
Interesting. So if I read the words of the Bible, it says yes.
That's something that you can see.
Sort of. So it says, it gives me an example of something that happens in my life that I cannot see. So even though on the outside I may waste away, day by day I'll be refreshed. It's from Cristi.
Just popping balloons.
Or something like that. Crazy.
No one's shooting at us.
No. Yeah. So it says, so this is an example of how this can be unseen. So though on the outside I may waste away, day by day I'll be renewed by the grace that God has given me. So it's this idea that faith is this hope that I will be restored and redeemed, whether or not in this life or the next. And so it's
okay.
So there's definitely this element of gray for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's part of faith, right? And so
because you can't see it.
You can't see it.
So do you use faith or hope for things outside of concluding with 99% certainty that your God exists?
Do I use faith outside of this conversation, like in my daily life? Or?
Yeah. Did you use faith today other than believing in the God?
I think because of the faith I have, it bleeds into my life.
Sure.
When I communicate with people, when I came to talk to you, I had a certain faith. I have faith in what's going to happen is going to be okay. So I think no matter what, it bleeds into who I am. So yes.
Okay.
I can't tell you, like when I was drinking water earlier, I was, man, I know this is going to go in my mouth. That's an easy one, right? So when I sit in a chair, I know it's going to hold me. When I wake up, these are different kind of truths. These are different. Are
you saying that you sitting in a chair would be different than faith?
I think it's easy. I think it's easy faith.
It's easy faith.
It's easy faith.
Is the faith that you use to be 99% certain that your God exists easy faith or some other type of faith?
A little more dramatic, I would say.
Dramatic faith.
Dramatic faith.
I love that.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between dramatic faith and regular old faith?
Regular old faith.
Yeah.
Well, so I think people have faith in things all the time, right? I think faith exists. That's another reason why I think God is real, is because faith does exist. People do experience, they have faith in things that then maybe they shouldn't. Maybe they ought not to. Maybe people have faith, you have faith in something. It may not be like something you can see, you feel like you have control over something, and you have faith in what you feel like you can control.
Yeah, like if your definition of faith is hope, then I do hope for things.
Sure.
So I guess you can.
That's part of the definition, yeah.
For the purpose of this discussion, I would say, okay, sure. I'll use faith.
Yeah, so it's at some level, you have the capacity to hope for things that you don't know for sure.
Right.
Animals don't really do that. I mean, they do at some level. They hope to find animals, but they don't have any faith in anything else outside of themselves. It's all internal.
Let's talk about this
dramatic faith.
Dramatic faith.
Right. Sorry, we got off.
That's awesome.
Excited. Sorry.
So how is dramatic faith different than regular everyday faith that I even might use?
And for the record, I just sent the I just sent the invite to the 7 day dude, the 7 day dude, because he has it coming to him. And yeah, the background on this one in specific, it's bad. This background noise is worse than when Jared and I were in downtown Fort Wayne. Like, this is way more distracting. But I did just send the link to him and one other person. I don't know if anyone even knows the person, so I won't even name them until we see if they show up. But I'm trying to see if a theist wants to talk about good reasons, good evidence. That's the whole purpose. We're 47 minutes in. And if anyone knows Gavin No Pants, he had 3 times to debate me on Clubhouse like 2 nights ago, and he ran from me every time. So if you want to invite him on, I'll debate him right here on the existence of God again. It's hilarious. All these people that talk all this shit, and now that I'm in a good spot, and like none of this is like crucial or emotional or anything to me, and I'm like, I can take it on and be cool and calm and collected. Now nobody wants to smoke. Now nobody wants to smoke. It's amazing.
It's not much different, I don't think.
Okay.
So there's 2 things. There's my quality of how I believe and what I believe in. So I think it goes into that. So if I place my faith in something that I can't control, I'm trusting in God. I put my faith, I give my heart to God. I put my faith in God. So I trust that He will provide. And so there's a lot more uncertainty there, but I think it ain't.
Why? Because the stakes are higher?
Stakes are a little higher. It's not. So it's kind of the stakes are high. So you look at Abraham in the Old Testament. God tells him to sacrifice his son, the son that He gave him as a miracle. Right? So that's ludicrous. God has given him this miracle, and here Abraham is suspending the ethical and the universal ethical to sacrifice his son, and then God comes in and says no. Right? So whether or not you just believe that's a story, this story is so counter anything that we're taught ever. This idea to suspend the ethical for a higher, that's insane. And I don't know if anyone, in most stories like this where they're told to sacrifice the daughter for the dragon, they do it, and it's sad, and everyone's upset or whatever. There's a hero that comes in and saves, but not in this story. In this story, he was going to do it, right?
Does this special version of faith make the insane palatable?
It may look insane to some.
I'm only using your word.
Right? No. It does look dramatic, and it looks at times it looks insane. I think we don't see things like Abraham anymore because of that's Old Covenant that we've got. There's a whole conversation we could have about Old Covenant versus New Covenant. And
I really like to keep on faith if we can.
Yeah, no, I know. That's what I'm saying. I'm sorry. I was just getting out there, so I wouldn't talk about it. But I think this side of the cross, we don't see insanity like that. But we do see, I will sell all my possessions for someone else. I shouldn't do that. Okay. It'd probably be wise if I didn't sell my possessions, but I've got this faith that no matter what, I will be redeemed, and that I have total faith in what I do will be okay.
You're absolutely sure when you use faith in this religious sense that it's going to happen?
If my faith is in God, yeah.
Okay.
My faith is in Jesus
Yet
Christ.
with regular faith, if I were to even use your version of faith and,
Sure.
and sit down in a chair and hope that it holds my weight,
Sure.
If the chair broke or it looked wobbly, or somebody, in fact, there's a chair over there where I was about to sit down and have lunch, and someone was like, don't sit on that one because it has a tendency to topple over.
Sure.
And I gingerly sat in it, and it actually started leaning over. So I'm
Sure.
glad that she warned me. So when I use regular old everyday faith, like with that sitting
Sure.
down, I have a way of testing to see if
Sure.
the faith was justified.
Mhm.
How can you will test the justification that you have that faith is going to get you what you hope for?
By acting on it. I think by, so you can test that chair, and you put your face in that chair to hold you.
Yeah.
And when that chair falls, it doesn't surprise me because that is, it's a chair. Even if it was a totally sturdy chair and it falls, it totally makes sense that if I put my faith in something that is not God, it will fail. The idea of God. So when I put my faith in God.
Whoa. But there have been times that
right.
you've sat down in chairs and they've held your weight.
Right, sure.
Okay.
But with my faith in that chair, no, I don't put faith in a chair. The chair has no credibility. I mean, it's
Okay,
a chair.
so I'm confused now because I thought you were saying that there's two types of faith, and one of them
I
is
think one is a greater level. I mean, I'm not sure if there's two types of faith. I think faith is prevalent everywhere.
Mhm.
I think when I decide to put my faith in God, that's when my faith becomes this exciting, dramatic faith.
dramatic faith, and I want that's the faith I want to focus on, maybe for 5 more minutes.
I think it's the same faith. I think it's just at a different level. That's where I put it in. It's where I put my faith. It's what makes it this kind of faith. If I put my faith in things of this earth, I will reap that. I will see the consequences of that. I will experience mixed results. Though I think this earth holds great capacity. So if I put my faith in you as a friend, you will probably be a good friend. But you will fail me as a friend. You'll mess up or what? Oh, and vice versa. If you put your faith in me, I will fail you. I will fail you. Where God does not fail. So,
Okay, are you saying that the more important version of faith that you use?
I wouldn't say more important. I would just say where I put my faith decides whether or not how faithful it is and how useful it is or how important it is.
But what I'm trying to understand is this special faith that you're using, that you hope happens, always happen? Do you always get what you're hoping for when you use this specialized version of faith?
So I think that's a interesting question, because what I'm hoping for is God will to be done in my life.
Yeah.
So as I live my life according to His will, which is walking inside with the Spirit, I wake up tomorrow morning and I say, God, let your will be done. When I go to the coffee shop and I meet a guy, he goes, dude, I was supposed to talk to you today. I had a dream last night. You were in my dream.
Sure.
I go, let's talk. So I go, okay. So I can either say, you're lying, you didn't have a dream about me, or I listen and talk to that guy, and I can choose to believe that this is what God has given me for the day. I can choose not to.
That's a pretty good example of how you're using faith to do an action.
Yeah.
But my question is,
Sure.
much like you can sit in a chair and discover that your hope and your faith in that chair was not justified because it dumped you on the ground.
Sure.
What would you accept to recognize that the faith that you're using for these religious areas of your life aren't reliable?
So either the times that I've gone out in faith, and they were accidents that they worked out, right?
Yeah.
They were just cosmic accidents, and I've decided to assign them to myself. So I moved from Amarillo to San Antonio to work for this church.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anyone down here.
Yeah.
Didn't have a place to stay.
Okay.
And all these things were provided for me. I felt like God was telling me to do that.
Okay. That's
So
a great
I
example.
acted on faith.
Okay.
And it worked out.
So my question is, when you moved out here and you showed up, are you saying that if things weren't prepared and they were like, dude, we don't have a bed for you, you just have to sleep in your car or whatever.
Right.
Would you look at that and say, oh, that specialized faith that I'm using let me down?
Right. So if that would have happened, I would imagine that I was still supposed to do that, right? So, or maybe I was supposed to. There was some sort of free will involved in this, correct? Right. So there's a little bit of I have to make a decision along the way. So if I had decided that staying in Amarillo was the best bet for me, I would have experienced some sort of. But the case is this is what happened. This is very well what happened. I did that, and it was there. You know what I'm saying? Is it,
What's the mechanism, Will, that you use to discover? Hold on.
okay, yeah.
What's the mechanism?
I'm listening.
Yeah.
Sorry.
What's the mechanism that you use to discover that the specialized faith that you're using didn't come true, didn't happen?
Sure. So I think
What's the corrective measure? If everything that if you look at every outcome to be like, well, that was really my faith too. That was my faith.
sure.
How do you know that you've just been dumped on the ground as if you were sitting in that chair when you use this specialized version of faith?
I guess whenever I'm under the impression that all things happen for a reason. So when I act on faith and it doesn't work out, when I'm on the ground, maybe I see a flower that I didn't want to see when I was on the table. And so we're kind of dealing in the abstract and these metaphors and stuff. But
Are you switching to regular everyday faith now?
I'm not switching to regular everyday faith. I'm just saying I'm saying regular everyday faith.
Yeah.
Is mirrors and is the same kind of faith. It's just a different. It's just is what I put my faith in. That's all that matters. Is what I put my faith in. I guess. Does that make sense? That's the biggest. But so backwards but to go backwards, how I measure that is I'm not sure if there's a measurement for faith. I'm not sure if that even.
Maybe measurement is not the best word, but what's the feedback loop to say, Will? Everything that you're using faith for in a God manner,
right,
has a positive conclusion to convince you that it's true. What would you have to accept to say, oh wow, when I use faith in that instance, in this God-related instance,
sure,
it really didn't happen.
Sure.
Maybe this isn't really all that I'm thinking that it is.
So I think it's this idea that faith is for
how's it testable?
I'm not sure if it's testable in that sense. And I'm not sure if faith is supposed to be testable in that sense. I think I test my faith. I think my faith is tested. Like when I have trials and tribulations, my faith is tested. And the things that keep me on track are multiple things.
That seems like the different kind of faith that we're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm interested in the faith that you use to be certain that these things that are happening in your life that you attribute to God really are God. Like if it wasn't, if every instance that you attribute to a God faith happens and you say, yep, that's God. Yep, that's God. Yep, that was God. That wasn't what I was expecting, but that's still God.
Sure.
If you have no way of saying, hold on a second. I don't know what that was. That wasn't God. How do you have a way to discover that this faith that you're using is not reliable? Because if it's reliable for every certain thing and you have no way of pointing to something to say, wow, if I see that or notice that, then that's feedback to me that this isn't a reliable method.
Faith is not a scientific method. So I'm not sure if it's testable in that way. But I do know that what's happened in my life is what's happened in my life. I should have been killed many times. I should have overdosed on drugs many times. I was born with a small neck and I played football my whole life and I miraculously didn't have to have surgery and learn how to walk again. And the same scar on my arm right now that's cut open from when I was on a fence is the same distance away from my main artery in my arm that by the time it took me to get to the hospital I would have died. It's the same distance. It's the same as my neck, right? So it's the same diameter as my neck, 9.5 millimeters.
I just want to say for those that have been hanging out for the whole fucking hour waiting, just be patient. We may have one or two theists getting ready to join, so just be patient. You know, sometimes it takes them a little longer to catch on, but they may be here in a moment or two. So be patient.
Right. So I go.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. So, but I go, okay, so either I can totally ignore those things and say, well, look at everything else. So which ones do so the question for me is which ones do I ignore? Do I choose to ignore all of the, wow, look at all this. Look at all of the faith. I can say, look at all these things that have added up in my life to culminate to make my life what it is. Or I can say, look at all the things that were bad in my life that didn't culminate to make my life good. Or the things that have affected me poorly and negatively. But even then, I would say those things have positive outcomes, and so. But
that's the dilemma that I find myself with. Like,
sure,
let me just.
That's the dilemma. We're here. the problem is not all the good things. We're ignoring these good things that have culminated in our lives, but we're looking at the negative things.
I'm not so much concerned about like positive and negative things.
Sure.
This is more about testing the claim.
Sure.
When you say, when I use this specialized version of faith,
Sure.
in every outcome, I know it's God.
Sure.
Well, how could you not know it was God if you could never identify something that you would have to see to know that it wasn't?
I think it'll never not be God. So like, I don't think God will give you an illness to teach you a lesson. So I think illness. So like, I
think we're kind of talking past each other here.
Sure. Yeah.
Let me use this example. My wife hands me this grocery list. All right. She says there's 10 items on the list, and it's all meat. Okay.
It's all meat.
It's all meat.
Okay.
Go to the grocery store and just go to the meat section. And there's 10 items on the list. It's all meat, right? The claim is that there's 10 items on the list and it's all meat.
Sure.
What would I have to see on the list to know that that was true?
Meat.
Yeah. Chicken.
Sure.
Beef. Lamb. Salmon.
Sure. Meat.
All meat items.
Sure.
What would I have to see on the list to realize that the list did not?
A vegetable. Right?
A veggie.
A veggie.
All right. A corn. All right. Beans.
Sure. Anything that's not meat.
So I can identify something to help me adjust my position.
Okay. Yeah.
My understanding that there's all meat on this list.
Okay.
Okay. I can identify something that if I saw a corn on that thing, then I know that my confidence in the list being all meat was unjustified.
Okay.
It seems to me that your list is all one item. It's all success stories of faith happening. If God, every outcome is God.
Sure.
What is the outcome that you would accept to say, there's that one anomaly so that I can know that this list really does contain all God faith related stuff?
Okay. I'm not sure that exists. I don't think that exists.
Does that alarm you?
So one of the big problems people have with God is he's not falsifiable, and I think you would have to tell me. You would have to the things that are on the list. So faith is not a grocery list that has all good things on it, right?
It's
faith,
hope. It's believing what you can't see.
believing what I can't see.
But we're talking about the outcomes
that
you experience after you use faith.
Sure.
Success.
But also what I see is I also have these. I don't ignore these negative, these not success stories. I don't ignore these.
Hold on. You have success. You have failure stories.
Absolutely.
What's a failure story that you would point to say that faith didn't work in that instance?
It's not that faith didn't work. It's that man didn't work. It's that this physical world falls. This world is made by God perfectly, but it's made and not apart from God. So this world is not perfect, though it is made in a perfect way.
Okay. You know what? I want to kind of wrap it up.
Sure. Sorry.
But can we possibly meet again? I've got a card.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, because I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And my name's Anthony, and your buddy has my YouTube channel.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I really want to meet again to keep just talking about faith.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this idea of falsifiability that you mentioned.
Definitely, yeah.
And maybe just as a homework assignment, can you think about why a person should hold a belief in anything if it can't be shown to be not true, if it can't be tested, if it can't be, to use your words, falsifiable? Sure. Don't even do it now, but if you can just think about it.
Yeah. And then my question is, to you, I guess, would be, I said it earlier, and you asked me a question about faith, and you said, what about life? What about life without faith? Is that a better answer? I guess.
Maybe we can talk about that next time.
Yeah. Next question.
Would this world be a better place if people used faith or if people didn't use faith?
Sure. Yeah.
I would love to chat with you about that too.
What I want to talk about.
Yeah, that's cool. Where are you parked?
That way.
Okay, I'm going that way.
Let's walk.
All right.
Let's walk.
Thanks. I glanced down at my phone.
I appreciate the conversation.
Me too. Yeah.
Sorry, I was not unmuted. We'll see if one of them join here, but we do have Mr. $666 suit joining us. Nick Suter.
Hello. You can all hear me. I'm breaking from tradition. Hey, how's it going?
I'm chilling. I've been waiting all night for a atheist to just jump in. I'm not even asking them, Nick, to convince me. I want to know what convinces them. I'm not even asking for a debate. I just want to know why they're convinced.
Well, I know all the atheists that I talk to, one of the arguments that they hate the most, because it's the most ludicrous, is it's like, well, you look at the Grand Canyon and how can you not believe in God? But that was one of the arguments I used when I was a theist. I mean, so I get it. I get that position. I've been there. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair question. Yeah, thank you, Launcher. I appreciate that. I figured that out. That's yeah, thanks. It's nice to have fans.
Well, I was scrolling through because there was a particular thread that I thought I had a particular email address for a certain person, and just the other night, was emphatic. They're like, debate me right now on God. Create a stream, create a channel, and I did all of it, and they skirted everything, and now I can't find the goddamn email.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that. I think we all have, and I mean, there's a number of content creators that I like to hang out with. Tang is obviously one of them. I think one of the reasons is because people really can come in a non-hostile way and have these discussions, and I think that's very important. I understand the desire to especially as an anti-theist, to be a debate me bro, and I've done that on occasion. I can certainly do that when it calls for it, but for the most part, that's much more sort of about ego, and it's sort of self-gratifying. It's not really productive, I think, in general. I think what's much more productive is, and I think that's sort of one of the geniuses of street epistemology is nobody likes the deficit model. Nobody likes being told, oh, here's what you're missing, and let me fill you in on all the knowledge that you don't have. It's people sort of need to get there on their own, and the vast majority of people who have deconverted did so because they had questions that couldn't really be answered, and they explored those on their own or with help, a sounding board. But that's really it. All of us, theist, atheist, we have a number of things in common, and one of them is we rebel at being told what to do. It's yeah. So it was by the way, it was a pleasure watching you earlier, and you and I have talked your deconversion story before, but that was fun to see it from the other perspective earlier today when you were talking about atheism and what was it? Atheism and hip hop was the
yeah, atheism, hip hop. Two of my favorite things to talk about, Nick.
That was a good show. That was a good show. It got a little intense, but it was a good show. So yeah, I mean, I totally and I'm a little surprised. There's always a lot of atheists who say they'll come on any channel and they'll have any discussion. And here's one that is willing to do it in a very, I think, positive way, and you start the streams and you find them lacking. And now I was thinking what I could have done, of course, is call in or use a fake voice and a fake number and pretend to be a theist. But that's the kind of that's dick move.
I didn't know
in
what you're
my,
talking
yeah.
about. I don't even know what you're talking about.
You know what? I remember these things, Oz, and what I do is I just wait. I just wait like 2 years from now. Nick, why the hell did you do that? It's like, do you remember when you called into my show? It's just, you probably won't even remember by that point. I was like, I hold grudges. I remember these things.
I have no idea what you're talking about, Nick. What exactly are you talking about?
Well, we were having a deconversion show, which we don't normally do on End Time because we don't really consider ourselves an atheist channel. But we were doing that, and somebody called in and wanted to talk about the Bible, and we said, sure, let's go for it. And he kind of sounded like you, and the number even came from your state, which really should have been a fucking tip off to the producer. Because it wasn't the first time you had called either. I'd fire our producer if I could. And proceeded to troll us, and we were so fucking stupid the whole time that when this person got disconnected, we're like, oh, we got to get the connection back. We got to. It's just like, and then I was like, wait a minute.
What happened?
I think I smell a rat. That's okay. You got to meet Sid Dithers later that day, so I got my revenge.
It was not Oz. It was Zoe.
Yeah, that makes all the difference. I'll remember that when I'm getting my revenge.
What are we gonna call you, Kin?
I'll come up with something. There's a new account out there. Nick Suter's Taylor. Yeah. I suspected you, and then I realized probably too clever for you. But at any rate,
Damn.
I'm not bitter. I'm not bitter.
No, not at all. I can't tell at all.
No. Trying to run a professional show, somebody trolls my ass. That's the only thing that pisses me off is I didn't figure it out. I'd have been fine with it, except it's just sort of like I was like, man, I really enjoyed that caller, and we could have talked to him forever, and he got disconnected and whatnot. Wait a minute. He's kind of familiar,
What happened was, well, we do have a super chat, so we gotta do this real quick, because you know what we do here at Tank Gang. What do we blame it on, Nick? What do we blame it on?
I can't even see the live. I gotta switch so I can see the live chat here.
What do we blame it on, Nick?
I don't know. I couldn't even hear it.
The alcohol. We blame it on the alcohol. But Pat gives $2 super chat. Thank you, Pat. Here's a bottle of Merlot from backsliding into Christianity. Let the church say amen. Amen. I'm really disappointed. I literally just in the last hour sent out all these individual invites to all these Christians that are always like, I'm the almighty Christian. I defeat all arguments.
But you see, I'm starting to suspect that they prefer to argue with the really hostile anti-theists. I don't think they like them better. I think they like people like you and I much better, but I don't think they want to talk with you and I, because if we say something that makes them uncomfortable, they have nowhere to retreat to. They can't sit there and say, well, you're being a dick to me, or X, Y, and Z. If you're arguing with a really hostile anti-theist, there's actually a lot of safe space there, because if they say something that's really a genuine gotcha moment, you can just usually blow by it with, you know what, you just got such an attitude, you've got that, you know, and it's much easier to deflect somebody when tempers are that high, and it's much easier to move off of something you don't like. So I'm starting to suspect that the people who like to engage in these kinds of discussions actually prefer the hostile anti-theists. They're just much easier to handle.
Unfortunately, you're correct, and it just hit me. I think I may have one more place to check. There's one specific email I'm looking for, and it just hit me. I might have one final place to look here. As we were talking, and let's see.
Well, I could channel my inner theist. I forget. I was what was the conversation? I don't know. And so I was on Twitter, which I strongly advise against in general. But somebody it wasn't the why do you hate God argument, but it was one of those close, something along those lines. And I'm just like, you know, it's I do miss my theism. I wish it were true. I think the people who say that they don't wish it was true, I think that they actually lack imagination. And I do, in fact, include Christopher Hitchens in that one, although I get a lot of blowback from people for that comment. But you know, so just like, and like, well, then, you know, why can't you have faith? And I was just like, you know, once you've seen the mirrors, once you know how the tricks are done, all you see is the tricks. All you see is the tricks. Once you see the mirrors, you can't see the tricks anymore. You can't, even if you want to. One of the best magicians, and I used to do a little magic. I loved sleight of hand, the idea of being able to do a trick up close, and you know, everybody's wondering how you did it, and it just takes genuine skill. But one of the best magic tricks I ever saw was on the Penn and Teller fool us thing, which is Penn and Teller trying to be fooled by some of the best magicians in the planet. And it's got to be virtually impossible because these guys invent tricks and these guys know what they're doing. And a magician came out and said, well, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to tell you how I do the trick. He said, but there's a problem. I'm not going to do it unless everybody here agrees that they want me to do it, because once I've showed it to you, you don't get that magic back. The magic does not come back. And he ends up showing everybody how he does the trick. And it's a brilliant way. It's a brilliant trick. And then, of course, all of a sudden, you know, because it's, you know, he's actually supposed to fool Penn and Teller, you realize he proves he couldn't have done it that way. So now there's got to be two ways to do the exact same trick. It was pretty amazing. But anyways, my point is, yeah, once you lose that quote magic, it doesn't come back. It doesn't come back.
Yeah, I was talking about that to somebody the other day. It's like for those that like, even a Jordan Peterson, where it's like, I was an atheist, now I'm no, you're not. No, you're not. You're selling books. You're not believing. You're selling books.
Maybe he is, because it does happen. It happens on, and there's been studies. It happens 1 to 10. So for every 10 deconversions, there's one conversion of an atheist. It does happen, and it happens more. It's more likely to happen as you get older, and I get it.
It's also Nick. We know this though. It's also more likely to happen to someone that is not as educated and informed as one that Jordan Peterson is.
That's a good point. Well, and he's got I think Jordan Peterson is losing his mind, and I don't say that lightly, and I don't say that as a joke. I have actually, you know, I think he's had a lot of bad takes, but I've also defended a number of his older positions. I think, you know, he broke out with the Canada's SB 1040 or whatever that bill was. And I think if he had interpreted the bill correctly, which I don't think he did, but if he had, I think was actually taking the only moral position. I just don't think he interpreted it correctly. But, you know, okay, that's all well and good. The stuff that he's been saying over the last couple of years is unhinged. And, you know, he had said something, I don't want to go off on Jordan Peterson, but he had said that the sports swimsuit model was not beautiful, the one on the cover. And that's one of, if that had been like a redneck, backwoods, whatever, who said that, I would just laugh my ass off and say, okay, that's because he's an idiot. This is a psychologist. He is a doctor. He worked at Harvard. He worked at any number of institutes, and actually was very reputable while there, and considered, and he is an expert in his field. He is a clinical psychologist. That means he should know that beauty is actually relative, and what is beautiful has changed, and there's no objective, and you can't just sit there and say something isn't beautiful. He also should know that the woman that was on that cover was probably one of the healthiest human beings that has ever graced that cover, and I think there's an argument to be made that healthy is beautiful. And all that notwithstanding, as a psychologist, I would imagine that he would understand that maybe it's not the best thing to call out a model who isn't political. She's not trying to make a statement. She just got a job on the cover of, Sports Illustrated swimsuit. I mean, I'd take it if they offered it to me, of course. But so she got this, and he's calling her out, and I'm sitting there going, like, you're a fucking clinical psychologist. What the fuck are you doing? What made it so disgusting was he should know better. So that is my long way of saying you've got a very good point about the God. He fucking should know better.
I agree. And Jena did hit on the head here. I have been like for an hour and 20 minutes now. God damn it. I got all this motherfucking sleep. I'm all pumped up, and all the theists are doing little bitches tonight.
Well, I can, you know what? I was thinking of a couple I could reach out to, and I don't know why. SJ just went through my head, but SJ is not going to be one of them.
Get SJ, please. Oh, please.
Well, SJ will not appear on stream with me. I debated her, and she quit debating for a year after that. She canceled all her debates after my debate with her. She had a number of challenges she had difficulty overcoming during that debate.
Well, I just messaged the last one that's just like a we'll see if they respond, but if not, we'll wrap it up like a burrito here in a minute. But if anybody wants to join and just say hi real quick, it's looking like all the theists are they talk all the shit. They talk all the shit, but they don't want to show up when someone asks for good evidence.
The only one I can think of too is, and I've forgotten, oh dear Lord, my brain is just not working. The Calvinist, and I've forgotten his name, although
oh boy,
Titan will remember. Yeah, he and I have a pretty good working relationship. If he's free, I'm sure he'd be happy to come on.
Well, but there's really no point in talking to a Calvinist, because at the end of the day, that they don't give a fuck.
That was going to be the observation I was going to make. Talking with a Calvinist is an interesting proposition. It's yeah.
At the end of the day, it's they're like, but both of us could end up in heaven. So who gives a fuck what either of us have to say?
Yes, that is. Yep.
Oh, Pat's here, with no shirt on. Oh, he does have a shirt on. Look like
shirt on. It's just skin tone, bro.
I thought she was coming in nude, but hold on, we do. I'm not, and I'm just say this right now. Merit, whatever. You don't have your camera on, so I'm in good faith. I'm gonna bring you on, but if you, I'm only saying this based on past experience and other.
I can dip out.
Past no, not you. But if I come on here and you show some porn shit, I will hunt you down.
Hi, good evening.
Good
evening. I
evening.
apologize for my. I'm on my phone right now. It's I'm trying to save bandwidth, and I just happened to tune into your stream, and you were inviting for a creationist to appear. That you made the remark that no one seemed to be enthusiastic in representing their views. I happen to be a Christian. Okay. I'm from the Praise I Am community. You might know Gavin Hurleyman. I'm
A
from
little
that
bit, yeah.
community.
Gavin has been running from me for the last 3 days. Yes, I'm familiar.
Really? He's one of the most outspoken members in the community here. But
Yeah,
no, I mean, I'll take your word for it if that.
yeah. Oh no, it's I have it recorded. I can post it later, but I have it all recorded. He challenged me to a debate. Told me to create the rooms, create the streams. I did all that, and he never showed up. But anyway, not just creationists, but just Christians in general. The point in the stream is why do you believe that there's good evidence? Why are you convinced that there's a God?
Yeah, I'm happy to represent my my position. As a Christian, I am persuaded to the rationality of there being a God, namely the Christian God, because of the scientific oddities that appear going back to the Old Covenant between God and Israel, where he instructed the congregation to abide by certain practices that we would recognize today as being sanitation, hygienic practices, to clean themselves after they touch anything that is dead, to separate from the congregation, to wash themselves. Up until the late 19th century in the United States, doctors were ignorant of life-threatening pathogens, bacteria, and when a doctor would come in contact with a patient who recently passed away, and then help a pregnant woman to deliver their child, what was happening was the mothers and the children, the newborn babies, were just dying, and no one understood why. And then there happened to be and I'm sorry, I can't, I don't have the reference to the exact name of the hospital nor the name of the Christian, but I can try to, because I'm kind of like, I just happened to stumble across your stream, and you're inviting a creationist to come up. So
You're good.
So there was a doctor who was a Christian, and he merely suggested for the doctors who were coming in contact with those who had passed away to simply wash their hands with soap and water. And for that suggestion, that Christian doctor was fired for making that suggestion. But looking back on it now, isn't it astonishing how vindicated the Christian perspective would have actually was, just something that God prescribed many thousands of years ago, wasn't wasn't adopted until almost at the turn of the 20th century, and that seemed to vindicate the Bible on that point.
Well, but if I can jump in real quick, is that what convinced you? Was that the evidence that convinced you that a God exists? Just that in and of itself?
No. Well, there were others. That was just one of them. The others being, for example, when God declared the vastness of the heavens, how He is constantly stretching the heavens, and we only find out from astronomy that the outer space, that space is expanding. Of course, that reflects the Big Bang Theory, which I'm not against. Apart from that, you have God declaring to Job, there being springs in the ocean floor, in the sea floor, how the sun causes the wind to be stirred up, which is due to the sun heating the ground of the earth, and then thereby heating the air, and the hot air rising up and the cold air coming down. All of this seems to vindicate what's been laid out in Scripture. And apart from that, you have the fulfilled prophecies from the Old Testament going into the New Testament, all the way up until the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD. And then ultimately, from a philosophical standpoint, I would say that whenever an individual makes a truth claim, so for example, if I say I see it's cloudy outside and that it's starting to drizzle, that I stake my claim on there being an intelligent entity that can uphold my observations to the degree of certainty whereby I can make that truth claim Whereas if I were to just place my bet on, say, naturalism, then I could be operating within a system where my observations are illusory and actually not what I'm purporting it to be. So in that sense, I would say that even for hardcore atheists, when you make a truth claim, that you are inherently staking that truth claim on something that is grounded in epistemology. And I would say that the qualities that best fit this characteristic would be an intelligent, supreme creator being.
Okay, so before we go to the philosophy part, I want to rewind back to what you said, because I think you made 2 or 3 points in regards to the text. How do you, how do I, how does anyone, like on the screen right now, or anybody listening, what is the methodology? What are the methods? What are the methods we use to understand and know that ancient text is a reliable tool, or a reliable method to bring us to true beliefs? Like first of all, how do we even know we can count on the Bible to bring us to that point?
Well, the Bible, as far as if you're referring to its authenticity, in other words, that the text hadn't been corrupted throughout time, I would say that obviously there's a certain degree of faith that you have to take with that. But apart from that, we can say that the Bible, the text of the Bible, has been reliably preserved by comparing the different manuscripts that exist today, and we see that it's preserved rather remarkably. Do you mean to contend otherwise?
Before we go, just based on your claim there, let's because I think something like that deserves a scale of confidence. So when you're talking about the historical accuracy and the dependability of this text, zero meaning it's not reliable at all. We're talking about just the Bible, and 10 being that this text is absolutely true. It's absolutely true historically, so on and so forth. Where would you lie 0 to 10 on the dependability and the accuracy of that book?
I would honestly say 100%. I'm not a presuppositionalist, even though I may sound like one, but and certainly I do wrestle with doubt from time to time. But by faith, I take it to be 100%.
Okay, and well, Pat, Pat, do you want to, or Nick, do you want to jump in there, because that's more your area of expertise?
I'm going to be out of my league, so if it's all right with Pat, I'm going to make 1 or 2 observations and probably pass it off to Pat, who's going to have much more salient stuff to say. The first observation would be if you have concerns about the unreliability of naturalism, which are legit concerns in my view. The problem is that the tools that we use for discovery, the naturalistic tools, are the same ones that you yourself would be applying to determine the reliability of the Bible. So you would be subject to all of that same fallibility. And my suspicion is that may have been where Oz was going. One example of this, aside from, say, confirmation bias, right? So you may have a couple of what appear to be great examples of where the Bible has been accurate, but my suspicion is if there are examples of it being inaccurate, what you might do is sort of be more suspicious of the sources and be much more critical of the sources that disagree with your interpretation of its validity for individual claims, as opposed to the sources that, in your view, support them. One example that I would use is you are actually correct in terms of Western medicine, that they had very little understanding of how dangerous death was. And I do actually remember the story of a doctor saying wash your hands and getting fired for it. It may have been that he was Christian. I assume you have that accurately. I didn't know that, so I got to learn something new. But I do remember that, and I'm well aware of that history. However, the Egyptians knew, and there were plenty of other societies that did know prior to Western civilization. It's knowledge that was lost, and that does happen from time to time. So while you are correct that here was knowledge that appears to be in the Bible well before Western civilization knew it, they could have gotten it from any number of other sources that knew it prior to the Bible. Just because we didn't know it doesn't mean that we were the first ones to discover that knowledge. We know that that connection had been made before. We know that there were people who knew, they didn't understand why, but they knew that dead bodies were very dangerous to be handling, and that's also why they burned them, and so on and so forth. At any rate, that is going to exceed my knowledge, and Pat will be able to address that, and I'm sure a great deal more, far more than I. But thank you for giving me my 5 minutes there.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Nick. And I'll admit that that's a valid proposition. I from a preliminary standpoint, I do recall reading how knowledgeable the ancient Egyptians were in terms of how to preserve the remains, human remains, and they were very knowledgeable in that regard. And so certainly, yes, that's theoretically the Israelites could have, I suppose, adopted it from the time when Moses was given that Moses was educated in Egypt. He could have learned all of this and simply passed it on. And so, yeah.
Thank you.
So I just have a question about manuscript transmission and conservancy, which I'm curious as to what your understanding is of variant discrepancies in text, because I've surveyed this topic several times, and manuscript transmission is extremely problematic for anyone adopting an inerrancy position, particularly as more manuscripts of earlier date have become available and been discovered through various circumstances. Sometimes they were found, sometimes they had been retained for a long time but weren't used in various translations of texts. So I'm curious to what your understanding is of manuscript transmission and manuscript authenticity.
A large part of my understanding concerning the inerrancy of the Bible comes from how the Dead Sea Scrolls proved the accuracy of many of the modern copies that we have today, from the Textus Receptus, the Latin copies, to there are some discrepancies, certainly.
So when you're talking about the Dead Sea Scrolls, what particular texts are you talking about?
Namely the New Testament Gospels, some of the surviving, even I think some of the apocryphal works, Book of Enoch possibly, but the main consideration for me was the New Testament Gospels, how they were preserved very meticulously. The discrepancies that do exist in the Greek copies, where you have one word in front of the other, two words describing a place or a thing, when translated into English or some another language, it comes out the exact same way, regardless of which order the two words are in. But apart from those small discrepancies,
so I don't want to burst your bubble, but there are no New Testament texts found within the Dead Sea Scroll caches. It's all earlier texts. There are no, and I'm not trying to be that guy, but this is what I do. So when we talk about the Dead Sea Scrolls, those are all what we'd call Hebrew or Old Testament or adjacent writings. There's no New Testament book found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And I've found this to be a very common misconception among Christians. Now, I'm not going to give you the answer, but there are other stashes of texts that date to the Christian era, but the Dead Sea Scrolls isn't one of them. So
Oh, I see.
And again, so it's a fallacious assertion, which means you really haven't.
Yeah, I apologize about that.
Well, but it means you have not really researched it like someone who's textually critically evaluating it, because I mean, each of those scrolls is listed by the cave they came out of, what texts were contained, how many copies of various texts. I mean, as far as showing conservancy among the Masoretic texts, which again are the Old Testament, the Dead Sea Scrolls show that there was quite a bit of conservancy within the Old Testament. But when we look at the New Testament, we actually find quite the opposite. Conservancy was a real problem. The number of textual variants among the New Testament is exponentially greater than the Old Testament, only because we have the Dead Sea Scrolls to compare against the later Masoretic texts. Again, Masoretic texts being from the Common Era. This is something, it shows that Jewish scribes were really good at maintaining tradition and copying, and Christian scribes were really bad at it, because we have so if we're going to say which part of, again, the Christian Bible is more accurate, we can say as far as transmission, the Old Testament seems to be more conservatively. It's still not perfect, but the New Testament there's more variants than there are copies of each other. Like even within later Byzantine texts, which are considered the formation of the corpus that was used to make the King James Bible, they were chosen largely because, hey, they're similar to each other. But even among that corpus of texts, which were considered excellent for their period in time, those texts are inherently very numerous variations between each of those. And I'm not gonna berate the point, but this is something more than a simple survey. This is you really getting into and maybe taking a year or two to go through all of the literature available. There's several good books out there. Each of them about 1,000 pages each, but you buy 3 or 4 of these books, you look through the current consensus scholarship on it, how transmission occurs, what are the variations of various texts. I mean, and that's the other thing too. When we talk about the corpus of the Masoretic texts, particularly the Old Testament, we'll just talk about the Old Testament. There's some real problems with authorship. Like how many when biblical scholars talk about the book of Isaiah, they typically talk about Isaiah in one of 3 ways: first Isaiah, second Isaiah, and third Isaiah. Very few critical scholars who are specialists just on the book of Isaiah, for example, will say it's one author. Actually, in a survey, it's less than 2%. So the overwhelming majority say it's 2, possibly 3 different authors over a period of about 200 years of assembly. So the book of Isaiah is a constructed work. Now, does that mean once it became a corpus text, it got formulated, it got put together, and let's just say constructed? But by the 3rd century BC, it appeared to be in its entirety completed. And then from that point forward, after the additions, the reductions, and the final compilation of the text, we see that text being projected pretty conservatively. But it had to get to a final state. And then there's a lot of investigation on different parts of the text. Why was one part an old version subsequently added to it? It's similar with books like Daniel. The critical scholarship shows that these books, once they were constructed and completed and became, and I'm using the term canonized kind of generically, once they became a completed book, then they stayed largely unmodified or unmolested through transmission. But we're only talking about the Old Testament. The Christian corpus is actually wrought with difficulty, just because every time we find an older piece of an ancient Christian text, particularly of the New Testament, we have real problems because they typically reveal something. For example, the addition of an ending to Mark that was never in the original text. Well, the reason they never detected that in the King James Version was because they were using later editions that had all assumed that was the correct version. But the oldest copies of Mark we have don't attest the appearance after, quote unquote, the women ran away and they were afraid. There is no second appearance. Jesus never reappears. The tomb is empty, and it's a miraculous, quote unquote, the last testament of Jesus being the Son of God is actually from the centurion on the cross. Now, these are other things too, such as the woman taking in adultery. right? Like we know these are later additions because we found earlier texts, and not just one, several, that show that there were additions and insertions and sometimes deletions. Some of the most troubling things that occur is as we get older versions of the various books of the New Testament and epistles of Paul, we find the deletions actually change Christology, add in, Christ every time the word name Jesus is up. Now that was something that was very common in the 4th and 5th century transmission of texts. But earlier scribes, although they were still formulating what there was going to be the Trinitarian formula, we see that the texts were transmitted at times with theological bent taking precedence over the actual conservancy of the texts, which wasn't a problem in Judaism. Judaism had already had a corpus of sacred scriptures, so transmission was more important than theology. But from the 3rd to the 7th century in Christian preservation of texts, theology was the driving factor rather than textual transmission. And again, this is the consensus of scholarship out there. I mean, you can survey it yourself.
And if I may interrupt, Pat, am I right when I say that to the best of my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, actually, to the best of my understanding, the consensus even among Christian scholars, for example, is that Daniel is not a legitimate book, that it's a, for lack of a better word, a forgery, and that Isaiah is as you said, it's been constructed, and there's a bunch of others, but that's actually the consensus even within biblical scholars. Is that
right?
I mean, sorry, within Christian scholars.
Well, so when I survey the literature, I look at, again, like Yale and Harvard Theological Seminary. These are people that are avowed Christians, but they approach the text from a non-fundamental point of view. They understand problems with transmission, problems with structure and context, right? And these are people that are leading scholars in the language of the time. I will tell you, one of the interesting things when you study the King James Version, because I'm all beating up on the King James lately, is the fact that when the King James translators were translating the King James Version, they didn't know Koine Greek. They were using later Byzantine Greek in their translations. And they thought it was an archaic form. They didn't realize it was a different dialect of Greek. So they made numerous translation errors from Greek that were later corrected. Fortunately, Koine Greek was, in a way, rediscovered, actually never fell away. They just didn't have the scholarship when the King James Bible was being formed. But Koine Greek now is how we translate text, in the time period it was, not trying to read Old English effectively. But I think I'm not here to deconstruct Christians from Christianity, but I would say if you take a fundamentalist position and approach this material with kind of it has to be this, you're going to be disappointed if you actually talk to even Christian scholars who are really knowledgeable on this.
And Pat, that's where I want to jump in. And Mary, again, I appreciate jumping in. And you're the guest, so I just want to throw this out there, and then you take as long as you want to speak, because we took all of us took several minutes there, if not more. And that's why the point of the stream is what are the good reasons and good evidence that not that you would use to convince us, but that does convince you. And can we talk about that? And can we possibly maybe and who knows, can we find a middle ground, or can we find a place where we can maybe agree on one thing but disagree on the others, so on and so forth. But I want you to have the floor. We did a lot of talking, so I want to give you several minutes to go on. You say what you want to say, and I want you to feel welcome.
Thank you for that, and this is an enlightening conversation. I appreciate every bit of input that all of you have laid out concerning the Dead Sea Scrolls. I apologize for my confusion. I watched the documentary. I could have sworn they mentioned one or more of the New Testament Gospels, but this is going to be something that I'm going to certainly spend more time researching in, and definitely the latter end of the Gospel of Mark is certainly something that's hotly contended within the Christian community. I myself take by faith that it is supposed to be in there, but of course I respect the views that it was later added in. And in addition to what Pat said about the book of Daniel and Isaiah, I will admit right off the bat that if it can be proven that that it was that it's a work by different authors compiled together through time, then that would certainly be a fatal blow to the authenticity of the Book of Daniel and Isaiah, especially if the writer purports to be someone who the writer is not. I do know that the Book of Genesis is well conceded by many Christians to be a compilation allegedly written by first-hand observers from Adam all the way up until Moses and so on, and he put the last edit to and put all of that together. And getting to your question, Oz, as to what gives me the confidence in the existence of the Christian God is the accounts of Jesus, who he was, who he claimed to be, and what he accomplished. The things that Roman historians had to say about him. I forget if it was Virgil or someone else remarked about him. Certainly that there was a person named Jesus that was whom the Jews at the time viewed to be a heretic, and they had done away with him, and so part of a large part of the foundation for my faith, it hinges on Jesus, and then of course the scriptures come into play. But as we were just discussing, a lot of that can be thrown into question. To which, for the moment, I will simply ask if Pat, if you happen to know the scholarly consensus, would you say it is majority in favor of the view that the Book of Daniel and Isaiah were written by multiple authors? And if so, would you say that those who take that particular view are finally divided into the, say, atheist camp as opposed to, say, the creationist camp, where it's, or would you say it's a mixed bag?
I'd say it's mixed. I think with Isaiah, it comes down a little bit more. The assemblage of Isaiah really has to do with whether or not how much pre-exilic, exilic, and post-exilic material was assembled. Again, we're talking a fairly long period. Isaiah seems to be the field seems to have a fair consensus that there's at least two authors. Now, that's the overwhelming. Now, there are some people that are saying there's actually enough evidence now to show that an additional third, like last, say, 10 chapters. I'm doing this off the top of my head. I mean, really, I'm not doing any justice, but the last 10 chapters so may have been a later edition, and it could have been considered a third Isaiah. So when we look at the old part of the text, we typically look at the first third to 40% of Isaiah, and we can actually, when I say we, I mean scholars can put that pretty far back into history. So that kind of lets us date the text pretty well. Daniel's more problematic. So among evangelicals, they tend to not like people to mess with Daniel because of its importance in, quote unquote, the revealing of the nature of Jesus. But textual scholars, typically the critical textual scholars, regardless of faith affirmation, are put the dating of Daniel later, like the completion of Daniel into the 2nd century BCE. Now, what those the Christian scholars that fall under that, typically what they'll say is that for them the message is more important than the construction, right? Like they're Christians absent the textual problems, but they're in their scholarship, they understand why the interpretation is such a way, but then they make a secondary faith claim. Like something when you write an academic paper, typically is you state your credentials, who you are, what institution you represent, if you received any funding for what you're writing, like, from a third party group or your institution, and basically any possible biases you may have. And I've seen more than one theologian say, I am a member of the community, but then their scholarship matches up with relatively within the field. Now, there may be some, again, I think if you admit from the beginning, hey, I'm a Christian, I'm approaching this from a Christian point of view, and you're still within the two rails of mainstream scholarship, you really are beyond reproach, in my opinion. And a lot of textual critics from the, I'm going to call them the Christian camp, fall into that category. They come down and they go, hey, I understand that this is why we need to interpret this way, but I still think the Christ message is true for these reasons, right? Or I read the text and it speaks truth to me as a person. But they also understand that as far as the transmission and cooperating elements or non-cooperating elements within the text, that there's problems with the initial construction.
And let me because Daniel is one of the ones that interests me, and I'm probably I think I'm gonna be, again, memory here too. I'm going mainly from the my memory on this, but Daniel is a prophet, and he purportedly wrote in, I think, 600 BC or 6th century BC, and that's what it claims. There's a couple of problems, though. First of all, the language that Daniel writes in, or he uses words that didn't even exist in the 6th century BC. They existed in the 4th century BC. And the question is, well, what happened in that period of time that created new words? The Greeks invaded. When the Greeks invaded, a lot of their language seeped in, and they had Greek borrow words, new words that came from Greek, and even new concepts, new religious concepts about the concept of hell, for example. These concepts are included in Daniel, despite the fact that they didn't exist in the 6th century BC, but they did exist in the 4th century. Daniel also has instruments that have been brought with the Greeks, but he could not possibly have ever seen or known that these instruments existed in the 6th century, and they certainly wouldn't have been played or used at the time. If you take a look at the actual prophecies that he makes, they get more and more specific and more accurate until the 4th century, where he is just dead on about what he's talking about, and then they precipitously drop off in accuracy and in specificity, which is another good indicator that maybe this was written in the 4th century BC. So when you take a look at the language that he uses, which just didn't exist in the 6th century, when you look at the words that he uses, the instruments that he talks about, none of which existed in the 6th century, but all of which existed in the 4th century. When you take a look at how his prophecies seem to get more and more accurate, almost as if he's remembering it from a history class up until the 4th century, and then boom, loses the accuracy. And then when you consider one other really important fact, Daniel refers to many of the other prophets. Now, he's one of the most important Jewish prophets, and yet he's not canonized in the Jewish canon of prophets. That canon was made around the 6th century BC, and he refers to other prophets as, even though they would have been his contemporaries, in the 6th century, they would have been his contemporaries, but he refers to them as having been canonized. This was purportedly written before that point. So why, A, are they canonized as far as he's concerned, and B, why hasn't he been canonized when he is so unbelievably important? What makes the most sense? This was written in the 4th century BC, which means all of it is a lie. This is the view of even the vast majority of Christian scholars who've looked at it, because you can't really get around most of these problems.
And to be fair, Nick, a lot of people would just talk about it as a theological construct, right? Like if you were going to be nice about it, the word lie and fabrication really is negative. But this wasn't uncommon in the literary traditions of even other books. Like, again, yes, whoever said they were Daniel wasn't Daniel. But why would you claim to be Daniel? Is the authority that Daniel, the name Daniel, would have had, right? The traditions. And there may have been a guy named Daniel who had an oral prophecy that was orally transmitted. We don't know. I mean, and this is where the scholarship gets a lot more muddy. But then someone later said, well, this is what Daniel would have done. This is what Daniel would have said. So Daniel, and they constructed something. Now, they may have had, in the theological sense, the best of intentions, but from an historical point of view, it's a fabrication and a duplicitous one. So, and the scholarship's pretty undivided on it. I mean, sure, you're going to find, and this is where, again, not trying to be too negative. But when you look at people that have critical scholarship degrees, like in linguistics, languages, verse, and even theology, certain theological seminaries require a massive amount of scholarship to get that degree, versus someone who has like a Rev D, someone who, yeah, I'm a doctor, but your doctorate is entirely a construct of your religious appointment, right? So you have to look at what schools, what training, what dissertation requirements these people have. I've again, in the last couple of years, when someone says, "Hey, this is who I am. I have a PhD in whatever," I go and read their at least the cover sheet of their dissertation now. And if it sounds like it's garbage, guess what? I look at what school issued them their PhD and wonder why they have one. And I'm kind of an asshole. And it just kind of, and I think it's fair to do that.
Yeah, and everything you guys have said so far are valid points of consideration. I'm almost embarrassed I'm not familiar with the contention over the Book of Daniel. I'm going to have to spend some time to look into it.
I was a theist and believed very strongly not only in God, but that God was working through me and I could heal people. And I didn't know this for 30 years. So there's nothing to be embarrassed about. Sorry, I cut you off, but I wanted to.
It's fine. I mean, even as a Christian,
they teach in Sunday school.
Yeah, even as a Christian, I concede to the possibility that, in spite of everything that I know, maybe, just maybe, the Christian God isn't real. But in spite of every thing that in spite of everything that the atheists have put out on YouTube that I've been able to review so far, all of it has, none of it has been a deal breaker for me yet. And so that's where I currently stand, which is that even if it's proven that life began here on Earth by means of intelligent design, that doesn't automatically mean the Christian God or any particular God. It just means what it means, that it was designed. And so it's, and I agree, it's dangerous to be so narrow-minded in how you approach certain things that that you begin to operate so close-mindedly that you become an irrational person. And this is why I respect what Oz was saying, that if there's a disagreement, that maybe there's some middle ground where we can both agree is most coherent, as you know, members of the human race living within the age of reason. Would you gentlemen say that your current, given everything you know, is it your position that there is absolutely no possible way that you can see for there to be a metaphysical supreme creator being, or that there could be one, but that you just lack the confidence in his existence due to a lack of revelatory measures that this being would have supposedly taken?
Well, I'll go first on this, only because I'm the least informed, the least educated.
That's not true,
right? And well, no, it is true. I'm a high school dropout. Everything, every approach I have, every position that I hold has just been through me studying and experience and watching and observing. And I have no formal education, so I'm not a specialist. I'm not anything. It's just based on what I've done my due diligence and to try to research and find. And where I'm at is also, like Nick said earlier, that he spent 30 or 30 more years of his life being a Christian. I can raise my hands, both of them, very high in the sky, and say that was me. And I was essentially in full-time ministry. That's all I knew. That's all I knew. That was my entire life. And where I stand today is, I don't see any good reason to believe that that there needs to be a God or a metaphysical foundation or proposition to make all of these things true or give us the ability to reason and logic together. I don't see that, because anytime and every time that I talk to someone like you, Merritt, that can come into these conversations and hold a very practical and humble and polite conversation, which I love and adore, by the way. I want you to know that I appreciate the hell out of that. I don't see any reason why we have to posit a God or a metaphysical or a supernatural into it, because anytime I'm given that, there more times than not, there tends to be a more naturalistic explanation for how or why we got to that place, or got to that position. So no, I don't see any good reason right now. But that's why I don't really cling to the atheist title as much as I identify with the skeptic title. I'm a skeptic. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to drill down, then I'm going to ask more questions, and I'm going to drill down. And if someone can give me and provide me good, reliable evidence that demonstrates that this God is real, I will acknowledge that the God is real. Does it mean I will serve him? Not necessarily. Not at all. But I would have to do the intellectually honest thing and operate with my integrity and say, yes, the God does exist, but that does not mean that I would serve him. That's a whole other conversation. So I hope that helps from the least on the least capable on the panel. I hope that helps.
I appreciate that, and that's certainly fair. And I would say I am exactly the same as you, except I'm on the other side of the spectrum, which is that while I'm currently an atheist skeptic right now, next week I'm probably going to have to wrestle with some doubt, and then I'm going to fall into a phase of being a Christian skeptic, and then I kind of go back and forth a little bit on that. And it's a lot of it goes back on faith for me, but when you asked me earlier, what is it specifically that gives me the confidence in the Christian God? Well, like Nick and Pat have outlined the problems that exist in some of the Old Testament books, some of the New Testament books. I'll have to look into that. And if I should come in, if I should see one day that there is such an overwhelming evidence that the Christian God is not true, then I will declare that as such. And like you, Oz, that doesn't mean that I'll be a full-blown atheist, but I will acknowledge that no, the Christian God is probably not true, and that it may very well be that there is no supreme intelligent being out there, in which case atheism is true, but that having a rational standpoint as a foundation is where I would go from there. So I appreciate that, Oz. That's I think we're holding the same or just about the same metric in discerning as much truth that we can observe throughout our five senses, and then just coming to the best conclusion that we can from that.
Agreed. And the last thing I'll say, and I'll let Pat and Nick jump in, and I promise I'll shut up. In the private chat, I put our channel email, Merritt, and these are the things that these conversations are the most I'm most passionate about. These conversations, and that doesn't mean that I'm passionate because I want to convince you otherwise. That's not what that means. I'm passionate about it because I remember asking the questions. I remember wondering. I remember questioning. And if there's anything that not just me, but that we can do as a channel, and even if you still continue to hold the belief that you hold right now, that's perfectly okay. That's perfectly okay. We just want to allow you the space and a place that you can ask all those questions, and you not get beat up for it, and you not be questioned because you're asking those questions. So I put it in the private chat. By all means, please email me, and whether it's myself or if it's above my pay grade, I'll send it to Pat, Nick, Dr. Josh, all the ones that are entirely smarter than I am. I will send it to them and refer to them. But I want you to know that you have that spot where you can ask all those questions. And even if you do come out the other side and you still hold that belief, it's no harm, no foul, bro. No harm, no foul. And I want you to know that.
Thank you very much for that. I copied the email.
Pat, you want to
Sure.
answer next?
Sure, I'll go. So I kind of approach this differently than I guess most people. Like, I study religion. That's kind of the focus of my research. I don't necessarily, pretty much I study Greco-Roman paganism and early Christianity. Those are kind of two focal points on my scholarship. I try to look at the societal and anthropological concerns of ancient religions and the modern equivalents today. All I see is history, archaeology, all the stuff I do can temper a lot of people's faith system. I work with some people who are avowed theists. And what I've noticed is, and I'm going to say, I don't know how to say it other than there are certain Christians I've met that really can drill down into the scholarship on their religion in a pragmatic way and come out on the other side with a much more nuanced understanding of why they believe. And sometimes that belief becomes something of where their belief affirmation is based on, I read this, it speaks to me, and for that reason, I lead a good life. I take what principles and hold on to that I think are valuable from these texts. But there are other things that allow you, through the use of critical scholarship, to maybe, I don't mean jettison, but move to a lower rung on your priority. I recently met a very, very acclaimed scholar at the University of Seattle who I assumed was an avowed atheist. And I think I talked to Nick about this a while back. And they said, nope, I'm a deist that leans in slightly towards Christianity. And I was shocked. And they're aware of all the textual problems of transmission, all the stuff that we discussed earlier. And I said, so how do you approach, like, for example, the Pauline epistles? And they said, well, I know which ones are the original ones. I know which ones are problematic. They typically don't say forgery, but they know they're problematic. And they say, so when I'm putting together my own evaluation of how I'm going to live my life, I only take the hard rules from the Pauline text that I know to be authentic. They've also embraced a much more, I don't want to say progressive, but the love your neighbor approach is more important than some of the other stuff that they realize are problematic because of the way these texts were transmissions, a lot of problems. So they approach, I would say, a very spiritual, less letter of the law, more spirit of the law approach. So there are Christians that can engage in this scholarship and come out the other side still believing. But there are some that engage in the scholarship and they go, it's just not for me, because it breaks the foundation. If the foundation is that this is the word of God and it's immutable, then critical scholarship is going to be a challenge. And I just hope that you can approach it with an open mind, but it may be a little scary. But when we study religions and ancient people, understand the number one predictor of what religion you're going to be is where you're born and what religion your parents believe. And that's true throughout the globe and throughout time. The number one indicator of what religion you're going to believe in is where you're born and what religion your parents were. And given that cultural basis of religion, I don't think religion will ever go away. I think it'll be a fast of our society until we wink out of existence. But that's telling that if where you're born and what your parents believe is more indicative of what you're going to believe than a divine message or inspiration or revelation, the system seems to be broken from the get-go if you're approaching it from a supernatural point of view. And I wish you the best of luck on your journey.
Thank you both, for all three of you, for taking the time to conduct this conversation. All the input that you guys have given. The study on the Book of Daniel is something that I'm going to definitely be looking into very soon. As a matter of fact, I was just recently, over the past few days, reading the end of the Book of Daniel. I was studying it it was a topic of discussion with several other Christians, and we were all remarking how the latter end of the Book of Daniel seemed to have perfectly predicted how Jerusalem was destroyed after the Messiah was after Jesus had been crucified, and after he left, General Titus, on behalf of Rome, stormed into Jerusalem. Defiled the temple, did all that, seemed to have fulfilled that. But now, knowing that the Book of Daniel was possibly constructed by multiple authors, especially if the latter part was by someone other than Daniel, and yet claiming to be Daniel, is problematic. But it's just so many things to take into consideration, but it's something that I'm going to have to look into. And I appreciate this conversation that I've had with you guys. Has been enlightening and edifying for me. And I genuinely say that it's been a pleasure talking to you guys. I hope to be able to do so again, but not before I look into all of it, because there's a big element of ignorance on my part. I have to look more into, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and now the Book of Daniel, and all of that.
And Merritt, before you go, one main thing, Nick being a former believer, is there anything you want to say, Nick, before?
Well, if you have time, to answer the question as to my beliefs. So I really want the world to be a better place when I leave than it was when at least for my part, than I started. I want to be as good a person as I can be, and when I fail at that, there's nobody who's harder on me than I am. And one of the things I realized very early on in life, and I think most of us recognize this, which is it's easier to affect the change that you want, for ill or good, if you understand things truthfully. The more error you have in your calculations, the greater the likelihood you're going to have a poor outcome. And certainly when I had faith, I acted accordingly, and I think I did do damage to people. And take a look at the Catholic prohibition on the use of condoms. If there really is a God, and if that God really says you can't use condoms, then the Catholic Church has done everybody a great service. Having said that, if they're wrong, you take a look at the catastrophic AIDS rate in Africa, which was largely the result of the mission by Pope John Paul II to convert them. You take a look at family planning issues and any number of problems, and you realize if they're wrong, they've done a tremendous amount of damage by this one belief that really was counterproductive. So I try to have as many true beliefs as I can, and there's no way to know for certain how many I've gotten, how many I don't. It's a process. All I can do is keep at it as best I can. And so in that process, it occurs to me that there are things I'd like to believe because they make me feel better. God is one of them. I would really like to believe in a God, and basically a Judeo-Christian one. Certainly, I would choose my own, but most Christians kind of do anyway. There's more than 3,000 sects of Christianity that think that the other sects are going to hell. They're mutually excommunicative. If you're a Southern Baptist, you think that anybody, no matter how Christian they are, if they're not doing the sinner's prayer, they're not going to be saved. Right. So I would pick as I did a Judeo-Christian God that fit what I wanted and what I already believed was moral. I wasn't taking my morality from the pastor. I was picking and choosing and saying, well, this makes sense and this doesn't. And I realized that the only reasons to believe in God for me were, one, it made me feel better. It made me feel like I'm going to see my children after I die and I'm going to see my parents again and all this other stuff, which I would really like. But that doesn't make it true. And then two, because there are things we can't answer, and this seems to answer them. But there are so many religions that all have something like this as an answer, and we know that human beings kind of seem to want to fill their gaps in their knowledge with this God. And how many people said, you know, thousands of years ago, well, why did the cows all die? Well, it was God. There must be a witch here. There must be it's called a gaps argument. We don't know something, so we'll say God did it. We don't know how life started on this planet, so let's say God did it. We don't know how the universe started. Well, let's say God did it. But that's not actually evidence for God. That's just evidence of our own ignorance, and we're putting God there until we figure out what it is. And we've done that for thousands of years, and we've been wrong every time. Every time. But this generation, now we've got it right. Didn't make a lot of sense to me. So I sort of reached the conclusion that I don't see any evidence for any higher power. If there is one, and that doesn't mean there isn't, there's just no evidence for one. And Occam's razor has shown me to be reasonably reliable, which is that you shouldn't add extra reasons. If we can do it without God, why are we adding God into the equation? And if we can't do it without God, it's still not an answer if you're just tossing it in there. It's the gaps argument. So I said, okay, I've seen actually absolutely no evidence for God, and that I can't explain how or why we're here isn't an argument for God. It's an argument for my ignorance, but those are two different things. So I don't see any evidence for any higher power. If there is one, I don't know why it would be any particular denomination of Christian over Vishnu over anything that people haven't invented, because you and I would at least agree that of the over 1,000 gods that have been that people have worshipped, you and I would agree on at least 99% of them being invented. Well, we seem to have a need to do this, and that in and of itself should cause some skepticism, because you say, okay, well, if we have a need to do this, and the argument has been made, right? Well, we need to do it because it's real. You know, we intuit it. Well, we intuit a lot of things. Look at the sun. You can intuit that the sun is moving around us, and yet it really isn't. Yeah, we have metaphysical intuition. We think there's a God. We think but I've seen no evidence that it's right. I've seen no evidence that it's anything more than wish thinking. And because I want to do the best I can as a person, I have to try to remove beliefs, even ones that I really would rather be true, from, you know, my belief set, and try to operate as best I can with the knowledge I have. That's it.
So just one thing, I kind of want to give full disclosure. So one of the books that I kind of recommend to people is the Authentic Letters of Paul by Dewey, Hoover, McGarey, and Schmidt. Now, this book comes out in 2010, but I just want to let the audience know Pat tries to be as fair. This is one of the most, for when it comes to Paul, this is what I consider one of the best. There are some other people too, like Ehrman and others. But Dewey got his theological doctorate from Harvard University. He is a theist. Hoover got his theology doctorate from Harvard. He's the Van Heuser professor of biblical literature and professor of religion at Whitman College. McGarey from Vanderbilt is now emeritus, means he's retired, but a professor of religious and ethical studies from Willamette University. He's a theist. And Schmidt, before he died, probably in my opinion, my favorite of these four guys, he was a graduate of the Theological Union and was the John F. Weathley Professor of New Testament at Texas Christian University in Fort Worth. These are identifiably Christian scholars who took a critical look at Paul's authentic letters, did some retranslations on some problematic text, showed that several of Paul's letters were actually smaller letters that had been assembled. And this is scholarship I rely on. So I use these four theologians because everyone in the field prior to Schmidt's death, Schmidt was a recognized expert in linguistics. The guy knew the original Greek better than many living people today. Many people have learned from, or did learn from Schmidt now, are now teaching. So you can be balanced in your scholarship, and it doesn't necessarily mean you have to reject someone, but this is critical scholarship. This book is not a fundamentalist approach to the text. It makes some hard decisions about why does Paul give 2 salutations in this text. It shows the letter was assembled. They do analysis. They explain as theologians why you need to kind of stop, take a pause, and look more critically at the text you're using to base your belief system off of. And so those are kind of things that, like, I want to give full closure. Like, I don't just go to atheists like Ehrman. I try to balance my scholarship.
Anything from you, Mayor? I want to make sure you get the last word, man.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Pat, and Nick as well, and you, Oz, as well. Thanks for having me on. The Book of Daniel is going to be something that is going to be forefront on my mind for the next few days. I'm going to have to really look into that. It has. I'll admit, I stand guilty as charged. I am someone who find myself preferring the gospel message to be true, because I really wish I can see my late father again sometime, and that I hope to be able to see my mother if she should pass away, and it's what gives me hope in one sense. But on the other hand, my desire to see loved ones in the next life is not going to be what is going to cause me to embrace a lie. And so I have that as a mission statement on behalf of myself, which is that I am in honest pursuit of truth. And I thank you, gentlemen, for pointing the way in the journey that I'll be undertaking. So on that note, I want to say thank you all again. Thank you for having me on. I look forward to chatting with you guys again.
Absolutely. And Merritt, please email me, because just based on what you just said, I'm not going to go into all of it right now. But I hope you email me, because I actually would like just to have a phone call with you and just chat, but it not be a YouTube or a social media thing, because what you just shared, that 100% hits home for me, and I would love to talk to you about that just one-on-one. So I hope you do. I hope you reach out. But I do. I appreciate your being a part of this and being an awesome interlocutor, an awesome guest. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I definitely will get in touch with you. I copied down your email, and so definitely.
Yeah, please
we'll be reaching out.
Please.
Thank you again, gentlemen. Have a good night.
It was nice meeting you.
Yeah, because when we start talking about the parents, obviously you guys know, our subscribers, our listeners, our followers, you already know that's going to hit home. And I know how badly I wanted it to be real, and I wanted it to be tangible in those moments. And for Merritt and others that listen to the stream later, the other two that I'll plug shamelessly, when we're talking about the Old Testament, is this bad boy, the Atheist Handbook to the Old Testament. This is volume 1. Volume 2 is supposed to be in the mail tomorrow.
I got it.
Fuck you. I don't have it yet. But like, so many of these things are so easily, and Nick, goddamn it, if you show that shit on the screen and you don't have a suit jacket on, fuck you.
Oh, and I got a nice little signature there.
And he signed.
Yeah.
I'm calling Dr. Josh in the morning. This is bullshit. This is some bullshit. This is some. No, I'm kidding. But I do want to say, everybody in the chat, I love you guys. I love you guys, because never one time did I and I was keeping an eye on it. Never one time were you guys attacking or going after or anything. Like, you asked questions that were acceptable questions, but never one time was it demeaning or were you say the word antagonizing. That's the word. Never once. And I appreciate that. And I hope to talk to Merritt again. I do. I hope he emails, and I would love to have a phone conversation, just one-on-one, and talk about that part of it, because I know that shit sucks, man. That shit sucks. And that wondering and that lost feeling, will I ever see or talk to this person again? So I hope
that that's the hardest part. That I think when you're trying to, give up religion, or you've constructed to the point where you realize that you can't go forward with it, right? Because of the now knowledge of your cognitive dissonance, right? That's the hardest part to get past. I mean, if someone were, and this is really my position, I think Nick and I've talked about it before, if someone came to me and they didn't have toxicity in their religious belief, they were kind of like this, I'm spiritual, but I don't put a weight in all the texts, and and they believed in basically most of the things I believed in on naturalism, but they just had this little extra, this little twinkle of I want there to be something beyond, but it didn't make them fear death, if they, but if it wasn't for all the toxic elements that weigh all the stuff down, I'm okay with that. I mean, in a way, if we could all be, and I mean this in the best way, if we could all be tree hugging hippies, right, the world would be a better place. But it's the toxicity and the constructed systems of religion that become problematic. The fact that we have an authoritative text that has to be held to its infallible and beyond reproach, that's where the system starts binding up and breaking. But if we all just like, hey, love, peace, bro, and be good to each other, and it's all love, and maybe there's a deity out there, I don't know, and we're willing to admit we didn't know, then religion would not be that big a deal. It's the social and cultural constructs around them. Oh, my religion says that women are subservient to men. Cultural construct. My religion says that the authority of a religious leader is sacrosanct. You can't question it. Cultural construct. These are systems and societal issues that religion enforces and is the problem. And I don't care what religious system it is, there's toxicity in all of them. So I know we talk a lot about Christianity, but no system is beyond analysis for this.
Right. And I agree. And I agree. And there is that's a ton of shit to unpack. Right. So we won't even go there right now. But I know Pat and I we have something to talk about. This is coming up this weekend. But before we do that, Nick, what you got coming up other than as you fucking should continue to shit on Trump? What else do you have coming up?
Well, we got Jena is actually going to be coming on. We're going to be talking about mental health, and I think we've got her scheduled for the 13th. So she's going to be coming on in time, which is going to be great. It's her first time. I think you've been on at least once, maybe twice. We've had Pat on before. This is going to be Jena's first time. So, and it's going to be a much more, I think, kind of an informal conversation. And I'm really looking forward to that. So we're going to be having her on. We're also going to be continuing our discussions with Commander Lance McMillan. We've been just doing informal chats with him. We have him on when if something really cray-cray happens in Ukraine, we have him on. He's been an incredible and invaluable resource for us for that. And then we also have these informal chats. Yeah. Yes, Pat.
I heard that you found where your wife stashed your Men's Warehouse card and will be buying a new jacket.
Oh, yes. I'm going to be buying a new jacket. I don't know when it's going to be unveiled, but I need to get. You know what? I'm tired of it. I got to get a new one. And thank you for the last time I was here. You donated to the new coat fund. So
yes.
And now that there's that the Nick Suter's tailor, or Nick's $400 tailor. The account was Nick's $400 tailor is running around now as an account, but. So that's that, and just covering the news. There's been a tremendous amount to cover. So,
oh fuck yeah! And if I can go back through my old cloud accounts, whatever, and find the wreckage, because literally you're going to have Jena on my. It'd be the 19-year anniversary of me almost dying. And have been resuscitated twice also, and you guys can talk about it. I don't need to be there. You guys can talk about it, because Jena's always like, how did you survive that? Because she's in the medical field, right? She's like, how the fuck did you even survive that shit? Like, you should be dead. So if I can find the wreckage, I'll send it. If not, don't worry about it.
Well, we're gonna need to have you on to discuss that, and I have some new questions about your deconversion story I want to ask you about, but yeah, I had no idea that we were scheduling on that date. If I was religious, I'd think God was trying to tell me something. But
and God said, don't get me started. I can play the pastor real well. I can do it real well.
Yeah, so that's it. That's what we're up to.
Awesome. And Pat, we all got a little something going down.
This is a busy week for Pat. Pat got booted by Biddy. Just kidding. That's a joke. Still working with Biddy on some projects. Nick's involved with now, so it's kind of cool. We'll talk about that probably next month. Tomorrow, I'm fortunate enough to be going on Myth Vision to Derek had, I guess, read mine and Stanley Terry's position papers and wants to discuss mine with me before my debate on Friday, which will be on Gur's channel starting at 9 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, Friday.
He did the paper?
He did.
Holy fucking shit.
You can read it. It's online. If you go to my blog, Discovering Ancient History with Pat Lowinger, you can read. I put them both on academia.edu. If you want to comment, you can. I know. And then on Saturday, we launched the new show, Oz, that Jena is kicking ass putting together. Yeah, you can read it.
I'm a bad boy.
I'm impressed. I'm impressed.
I don't know if I would be.
I'm just impressed that I don't even give a fuck what it says. I don't care if it's just the same sentence copy and pasted 3,000 times. I'm just impressed that the motherfucker did it.
I will say this, reading it kind of put me in a place where I kind of understand where Stanley's coming from. So here's my feels moment. I'm a little concerned for Stanley. I read the paper, and if he was one of my students and he was talking to me, I mean this, I would ask him if he's okay. It's really hard to see his perspective from the outside trying to take, and I really did. I mean, I had a cup of coffee, I sat down with it, and I tried to be as open to his presentation as I could be. And I understand I'm already biased against his position because I have my own position. But the first thing that happened is it went around my colleagues, and I told them to give me, hey, look, I'm going to be debating this guy. What do you think of his position? And it was similar things. I was asked about, like, how well do you know this guy? Well, I don't know him that well. After this debate on Friday, I predict a couple things. I predict that regardless of how the debate goes, Stanley's going to claim he won.
That's for sure. That's for
regardless of the evidence I present, even if it's a mountain of evidence against him, he won't accept it, which is okay, I guess. But I'll never debate him again. Not because I don't appreciate his opinion, but I think there's some roadblocks there that require intervention other than scholarship. And you know, I don't want to make comments outside my wheelhouse, but I'm worried that sometimes I'm worried in this particular case if I'm punching down too hard. And I've actually had to go through some personal, I wouldn't call it soul searching because I don't believe in a soul, but I've had to do some reflection on, you know, you've spent all this time, Pat, becoming an educator and trying to help people. This person doesn't want to learn. They may have some issues of bias that may be organic and something they can't get past currently. And are you really doing the service? Now, to be entirely fair, I'm not dodging this one. So I'm in some ways co-opting my own reservations in this particular facet. But I'm looking forward to it, but I'm trying to remain a temperament that doesn't come off too aggressive, given the back and forth he and I have had over a period of time. So, I mean,
and of course, Pat, with you, and I've told Dr. because I know Dr. Josh just refuses to engage it, and those are two different conversations, right? And you and I have already discussed that. I appreciate that you're approaching it the way you are, and that even in that you still hold that compassion, where it's like I already know what's going to happen, but there's still compassion that lies, you know, within that.
Well, to be fair, my wife reminded me I needed to have compassion. Like, I think I told Nick, my wife said, she read both, and she said, if you debate this guy, you're an asshole. I mean, that's my spouse saying, you, like, just, this is not fair. And
see that's what I was leading up to is as I do, and I mean this, I respect that, and not ever talking to or meeting your spouse. I appreciate, I respect that as well. I think that's incredible. For me, not having the background in academia and all that you and Josh and even what Nick brings to the table, I don't have, like, nothing at all is at risk for me. I can get on here and talk all this shit and nobody cares. Nobody cares, right? And for me, the fact that he has talked the level of shit that he's talked about some of the people that are the most important people to me in my life, there's very few times that I say punch down. There's very, very few times that I say punch down. And I'm not saying that Pat should punch down. I'm not saying Nick should punch down. I'm not saying Josh should punch down. But God damn it, in this circumstance, I will punch the fuck down. Why? Because I feel like he deserves it. Because you don't get to call out people. You don't get to call out people that are so much well prepared, so much more educated, so much more informed, and hold an expertise in these areas than you do. And all you try to do is humiliate them for no reason and smear their names and smear their experience and smear their education for no goddamn reason. So for me, where I come from, you know what they say.
I agree with you. That's why I agreed to do it. Is old Pat reared its head, you know. Oz and I but I also know that regardless what happens on Friday, Stanley will be unmoved, and there's no amount of niceties, scholarship, engagement that is going to dissuade him because of a mindset he's stuck in.
Well, he will be unmoved only until, and whether it's I do it alone or there's others that want to be a part of it, he will be unmoved until after that, and we do a review of the debate, and we point out line by line on how ridiculous this argument is, and that's where I'm saying for me personally, have zero issues punching down on. There's like 3 or 4 people in the community that I have no issues punching down on, and he's one of them.
Well, so normally I'd agree with you. And I agree with you in your sentiment because I know he's caused some of our mutual friends a lot of angst and hounded them. But let's just, for example, let's just say possibly that Stanley is suffering from some as unknown or undiagnosed condition. Again, that doesn't necessarily alleviate his responsibility for his behavior, but a debate with Stanley is likely not going to have any positive effect. Like, so I'm going to do this as a methodological necessity to show the audience and other people and our viewers and those that are open to the scholarship on this issue, but I'm not doing it for Stanley. I'm literally doing this for the audience now.
Absolutely.
I agree with your assessment. If you've already said yes, if he is as you've described him, backing out would be extremely problematic. And it's what I having been in similar positions before, I think if there's any way to go through with it, you kind of have to, and you have to do what you're doing, which is to adjust your tempo and make sure that you're in control. But you cannot back out.
In my old job, once you breach, you make entry. Once you've thrown that flashbang, you're committed.
Well, and I was going to say it's a little different because Pat comes from the other side of it. My side of it, if you pull the thing, you better be ready to bang. You don't pull the thing unless you're ready to bang, and that's what happened. That's what happened. And he called Pat out, and Pat was like, "Okay, if you're gonna pull the thing, you better be ready to bang, motherfucker." And Pat did the same shit in a debate form, obviously. But no, I'm looking forward to it. And Pat, you're exactly right. I don't think you're going to do anything to change his mind. But what you are going to do is, oh God, I literally wish I had a silver platter in front of me right now, because this is what you're going to do for the rest of YouTube. It's going to be, hey guys, here's this silver platter. Here's this silver platter. Have a feast. Have a feast. And it's not, when I say have a feast, it's not about like trying to humiliate or drive somebody to a point of being humiliated or being embarrassed. But it's now all of these bad ideas, all of these bad moves have been dissected. Now let's talk about it. Now let's do it, because now it's been properly dissected, and there's nothing wrong with that. And if someone else runs off with it and has different ideas, I can't control that.
I agree.
We're just dealing with facts, right? Oh boy, Jena's already in the. I'm not even going to bring it up because I'm trying to wrap. I'm trying to wrap this shit up like a burrito, because I need to.
Thanks, Jena. Stir that pot. Stir it.
It's almost 3 a.m. here, so I'm gonna have to go pretty soon, one way or the other. It's 3 a.m.
Yeah, I've been seeing. I gotta use the restroom. There's a lot of things that need to happen right now.
A great stream tonight, Oz. More of these to come. I'll be more than happy to help out whenever you want.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully next time it doesn't take an hour and a half to get somebody to to jump. But that's the thing, when you're first starting out, it takes a minute. I remember that on our call-in shows. It takes a minute to get people coming in. But the more people see that it's cordial like this, the more willing others are to come on. So we'll snip this out and show people like that this is what we do. This is how we interact and promote it. But I appreciate both of y'all being on. And just remember, this Saturday, 9 p.m. Eastern time, What is it? What is it? Can you dig it, sucker? Pat Lowinger and Dr. Yashua Bowen. And then Sunday, we have a 2-piece and a biscuit at about 11 a.m. Eastern time. Oz and Jared. That's not a word. Jared and myself, and the rest of the HFA crew, those that are comfortable with it, will be having a little shindig down in my apartment conference room. We'll do that at 10 p.m. Eastern time Sunday night. Guess who's back? Jimmy's back, and we're going to do all the comedy. We're going to talk about how religion poisons everything, and we're going to talk about our own personal interactions downtown in the cities we live in, whether it's SE or just approaching street preachers and how that goes, because that's always interesting. And last but not least, just remember, on Devil's Night, 10/30/22, your boy's dropping an album. Your boy's dropping an album, and you better buy. Even if you don't listen to hip hop, I don't give a fuck. You better buy that shit. And that means you too, Nick. I expect to see a video of you bobbing your head, driving down the road.
My wife will be sitting there going, "Who's Oz? What is this for? What the fuck?"
I thought Oz was behind a curtain somewhere.
You have the weirdest friends, Nick.
But I appreciate y'all, and I can't wait for the debate. But in the meantime, we'll catch y'all later. Remember, love y'all. Atheist Your Way.
Later.
Yeah. This is for all you non-philosophizing black sheep, unwelcome, push to the side motherfuckers like me.
Fuck what they say. Tang gang, atheist your way. Yeah. Fuck what they say. Tang gang, atheist your way. Let's get down to business. These bitches got glitches. And you thought you'd dismiss us? Nah. Now I'm laughing in stitches. See, the problem be, it'll be a tragic travesty to come after me. So just know this is how we get down. Respect that shit like a pronoun, bitch. Yeah. Fuck what they say. Tang gang, atheist your way. Yeah. And fuck what they say. Tang gang, atheist your way. Yeah. Fuck what they say. Tang gang, atheist your way. Yeah. Fuck what they say. Tang gang, atheist your way.